This is the complete history and evolution of the Destiny franchise. Starting with the earliest versions of the game and ending with where we are today, this is the experience of what it was like to be a Guardian throughout the ages. So whether you're a seasoned veteran reliving this nostalgic journey, or a new player discovering what you missed out on, this is the history of Destiny.
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 Destiny. Destiny. Destiny.
The year is 2008. Absolutely nobody has heard of Destiny at this point, but the first concepts of the game are being born. The developers at Bungie are planning to make Destiny a fantasy game. The current concept art features horses, medieval castles, and crazy-looking monsters. This incredible city is going to be Destiny's main social space. But something doesn't feel quite right. The fantasy concepts are cool, but the developers just feel really drawn to the realm of science fiction. So, they've decided to invent a new genre called mythic science fiction, one where medieval ruins and crazy alien spaceships come together. Bungie decides that this image will define their vision going forward, and this space tiger inspires them to give Destiny the codename Project Tiger. After hundreds of additional concepts made by Bungie's 400 developers, the first ideas for the Last City and the Traveler are now being created. Titans, hunters, and warlocks are being invented and tweaked alongside Destiny's races: Human, Awoken, Exo, and Tiger Man. A few months later, Tiger Man has now been removed, and we're left with the final 3 races and classes. With some of the initial prototypes now complete, Destiny is set to be a third-person game unlike anything the world has ever seen. The developers are exploring tons of new ideas, and right now there's a version of the game where you can manually fly your ship around to different areas as you explore the Destiny universe. In 2011, early versions of the now first-person Destiny are now playable. Bungie is making these prototypes using the engine from Halo Reach, their previous title. The first enemies are now in the game, and the user interface is going through a ton of iterations in order to figure out what works best. The first playable version of the tower is created, and the user interface changes again, now including the option to trade items with other players. Worlds are slowly being constructed, and things are starting to really come together. A former contractor at Bungie has just leaked the name Destiny to the public for the first time. We're all unsure about the validity of this leak, but it is very interesting, especially considering that this poster in Halo includes the words, "Destiny awaits."
The stories tell of a golden age long ago, when our civilization spanned the system. It was a bright and hopeful time, but it didn't last.
Bungie just launched their first ever official Destiny reveal, a video called Pathways Out of Darkness. For the first time, we're seeing some details about what the Destiny universe will look like. We get a look at the user interface and a basic explanation of the game's story. As interest in the game starts to steadily climb, YouTubers like Datto and Bife start to cover the game, even though it won't be launching for quite a while.
Destiny is the new sci-fi fantasy shooter coming from Bungie. It is a very ambitious project that plans to take its course over the next 10 years.
You are invited to join our fire team as we introduce the world to Destiny.
Bungie is now hosting a series of events at E3 2013 to introduce the world to Destiny. News of Destiny hasn't spread too far because there's still a lot of time to go before launch, but right now the most avid fans are getting a first look at real pre-alpha gameplay after waiting for hours in the lines. After E3 wraps up, the chatter about Destiny starts to pick up a little. However, unbeknownst to everyone, the developers at Bungie are in panic mode. Bungie leadership has just decided to delete the entire story that they've been working on for years and start over from scratch. The old story heavily involves a character named Crow, who is basically your buddy. He goes with you everywhere as you explore the Destiny universe and delve into the secrets of the collapse. Crow is featured in nearly every cutscene and plays a major role in your journey as a Guardian. But for whatever reason, Bungie leadership doesn't like this story. This is just one of many challenges that Bungie is facing right now, and everyone is scrambling to rewrite the story, construct the game's infrastructure, and get every little detail ready for launch. A year has gone by, and it's now finally time for the masses to get their hands on Destiny. It's June 2014, and it's time for the alpha. Players are able to create a character that starts at level 3, visit the tower, and continue to level up on the Cosmodrome, a destination on Earth. There's also One Strike and the Crucible. Playing the alpha is amazing. Even though you can only go to the tower and the Cosmodrome, the feeling of exploring a vast new world is exhilarating. People are finding little secrets like this map at the tower that you can only access by interacting with one of the bots, and this level knight who is extremely overpowered and almost impossible to defeat. Everyone wants to level up and become more powerful so that one day they can return and defeat this knight. Whether you're grinding to reach the level 8 cap, trying out all of the weapons at the gunsmith, or just dancing in the tower, you're having fun in the alpha. The public perception of Destiny is drastically changing now that people are able to experience it. From the perspective of the masses, Destiny has gone from, that looks alright, to, oh my gosh, this game is insane, and I cannot wait for the full release. Hype has reached a level 10 times higher than it was before. About a month later, it's now time for the beta. This is a pretty similar experience to the alpha, except now we have a bit more stuff like 2 more PvP maps and a new event called the Iron Banner. The beta is going great, and it's continuing to build everyone's interest in Destiny. It's now the last day of the beta, and we're in for a surprise. Bungie has just unlocked a brand new patrol space. We can go to the moon. Everyone has been wondering about the moon ever since our ghost, voiced by Peter Dinklage, told us this.
That wizard came from the moon.
As launch day approaches, more and more info is coming out about the game. There's an epic live-action trailer telling us to become legend, new blog posts from Bungie, and even a tool that lets us view every planet early, kind of like Google Earth. At this point in time, everyone is talking about Destiny. There are billboards all over Times Square, posters in the subway tunnels, and even TV commercial breaks are being dominated by Destiny advertisements. The hype is almost unbelievable. Before the game is even out, people are making full-on cosplay sets, rocking Destiny merch, and telling all of their friends about the game. Destiny is trending everywhere, and the people are ready. It is finally time.
This is the first time we've ever done this, Zach.
I know. All right, here we go. Pressing button. We're online. Okay, 26 people, 36 people, 62, 140, 171, 292 people, 1,000 people, 1,800 people. We're live!
Destiny servers are live. This adventure has begun. It's awesome to have you here.
As players flood into Destiny for the very first time, they're selecting their classes, playing through the initial story missions, and acquiring their first loot. Every piece of loot is exciting. Even green and blue drops give players a dopamine rush as they inspect it to find out what they just acquired. Right now, the game feels magical for every single player. The Destiny director represents an entire universe to explore, and everything you do is a brand new experience. There is a profound sense of mystery and adventure because people know literally nothing about the game. This ignorance contributes to intense feelings of excitement whenever you find a new mission, a hidden chest full of loot, or a brand new area that you've never seen before. However, there is one thing that's more exciting and intriguing than anything else: exotic loot. These extremely powerful weapon and armor pieces are super mysterious because some people don't even know they exist, and almost nobody has acquired one. They seem to be unbelievably rare. The game doesn't include any way to discover or research exotic weapons, so seeing another player holding an exotic immediately overwhelms you with questions. What is that? What does it do? And most importantly, how can I get it? These questions are filling players with an insane feeling of anticipation whenever the loot screen pops up. Is something cool about to pop onto my screen? Could I potentially discover an exotic that nobody else has seen before? Publisher Activision reports that they sold over $500 million worth of Destiny to retail stores on day one, making Destiny the most successful video game franchise launch of all time. Hype is still reaching new heights as more and more Guardians join the Destiny universe to see what it has to offer. Right now, loot is truly scarce. Other loot-focused games tend to shower players with loot for doing basic activities, but Destiny is not like this at all. If you want loot, you really have to earn it. and even after you earn it, you have to level it up. The grind to level up is real, and it's especially brutal because it requires a ton of planetary materials. A big part of the game right now involves running around in patrol for hours and hours, farming for the needed planetary materials. Having the loot be this rare and difficult to acquire is a little frustrating for some, but all of that grind and frustration makes it all the more satisfying when you finally get a drop.
Oh, this is the cloak I've been wanting! Oh my god, it's sick!
On Friday, this guy appeared in the tower. Most players don't even know he exists, but he is selling exotics. However, unlike other vendors, you'll need a lot of strange coins in order to buy anything, and these are fairly difficult to get. Here on week 1, almost nobody has enough strange coins to purchase a weapon, and those who do are probably choosing the Red Death, a powerful pulse rifle that heals you on every kill. But of course, this will only happen after you use it for a long time to unlock all of its perks. This whole weapon leveling system makes it kind of difficult to tell which weapons are actually good, because some will feel extremely bad before they are leveled up, and then extremely powerful afterward. With Destiny being a brand new franchise, the novelty factor is making players love even the little things about the game. We love simply driving our sparrows around, using our emotes, and just hanging out in the tower. Remember how I mentioned loot being scarce? Well, players have been desperately searching for a way to get more loot, and they might have just succeeded in week 2 of Destiny. Someone has just stumbled upon a place they're calling the Loot Cave. This is a particular cave in the Cosmodrome where you can just mindlessly farm enemies and be handsomely rewarded with engrams. The news is spreading like wildfire, and hundreds of thousands of loot-hungry guardians are swarming the cave with hopes of getting their first legendary gear or perhaps even an exotic. However, players' dreams of good loot are being crushed by the Cryptarch, Master Rahul. He is taking purple legendary engrams and mostly turning them into blue items or materials. There's nothing more frustrating than going to the Cryptarch after hours of farming the loot cave just to be disappointed with random bad luck. In this second week, Bungie has also just released a monumental piece of content, Destiny's first raid, the Vault of Glass. Raids have existed in PC games like World of Warcraft for a while, but this is the first time a true MMO-like raid has ever been on a console. When you also take into consideration that this is a first-person looter shooter, it's clear that the Vault of Glass is the first of its kind. This clan named Prime Guard secures the first ever Vault of Glass completion after 14 straight hours of raiding, but soon after, people have now discovered that you can simply push the final boss off the map for a free W. Speaking of the final boss, Atheon has tons of bugs that can wipe your entire team for literally no reason. Overall though, everyone who attempts the raid is awestruck by the environment, the bosses, and of course, the loot. The secret chests, the creative encounter design, and just the sheer scale of the raid makes it a true spectacle and something that every player wants to beat. That strange looking Xur character is back again. This week he's selling a rocket launcher? Really? Heavy ammo is kind of rare, and most of the time you're not going to be using your heavy weapon, so most people are deciding not to buy the Gjallarhorn. The community has basically decided it's probably best to save up your strange coins because maybe Xur will sell a primary weapon next week. Bungie just published an article called Bungie Weekly Update. Nobody knows if they will actually continue publishing one of these every week forever, but it's nice to hear from the developers now that the game has launched. They're reporting that we have played Destiny for over 100 million hours, which is equivalent to 11,000 years, all within the first week. The game is clearly off to a good start, and it's evident that this is a magical time to be a Destiny player. But some people are realizing that parts of the game aren't exactly perfect. There are only 20 story missions to play through, and the narrative leaves a lot to be desired. Since there's no in-game lore, almost nobody has a deep understanding of the game's backstory or its characters. It's now week 3 of Destiny, and a new event called the Queen's Wrath just started. This previously blocked off area in the tower is now open, revealing Petra and her ship. This event offers armor, shaders, and emblems for completing story missions. Playing a relatively boring story mission for the 5th time isn't exactly exciting, but it sure is rewarding. Datto basically sums it up.
This is, by far, the best way to try and gear up in legendary gear.
Up to this point, a lot of players still don't have a full set of legendary gear, so this event is helping everyone finally get some high-level purple items. As time goes on, players are starting to recognize the power of the Gjallarhorn. Remember that rocket launcher that nobody bought from Xur 2 weeks ago? Well, now people are starting to really talk about it, and it's growing in popularity. This guy even built it entirely out of Lego. Overall, it's just insanely powerful and deals massive amounts of damage, unlike anything else in the game. As players continue to experience the game and some of the initial hype wears off, the reviews are starting to pour in. Some reviews are pretty positive due to the game's amazing visuals, gunplay, and core gameplay mechanics. Others, though, are more critical, citing poor level design, loot being too scarce for a looter shooter, and a boring story as some of their main concerns. And they aren't wrong. Being told to defend your ghost for the 15th time while he scans some random box isn't exactly exciting, and overall the objectives are very basic and boring.
My to-do list is shoot a bunch of guys, shoot a bunch of guys, shoot a bunch of guys and take their stuff, and finally stand still and look at stuff for 30 seconds.
Another huge disappointment is that there is no lore in the actual game. If you want to learn about the details of the story, you have to close the game and go read stuff on Bungie's website. Bungie originally promised that Destiny would have an epic story on the same level of Star Wars or Harry Potter, and since they clearly didn't deliver on that, fans are a little disappointed. There are definitely some problems with the loot and the leveling as well. The only way to get to level 30 is to do the raid, but the raid is also kind of hard if you aren't level 30. You have to be extremely lucky to get all of the raid loot, and this is causing a lot of people to get stuck at level 29. The hashtag Forever29 is becoming somewhat of an inside joke within the Destiny community. The other problem is that since the raid gear is the only high-level gear, everyone looks exactly the same. There is no transmog or customization system that can traditionally be found in other MMOs. The only thing we can do is select a single shader that applies to all of our equipped armor. Unfortunately, the Guardian customization doesn't exactly have many good-looking options either, so people are a little annoyed with the customization and appearance options in the game as a whole. PvP is starting to draw a lot of attention from the community. The Crucible has a total of 12 maps and 6 modes, and it's actually kind of fun. Featuring infinite special ammo from crates around the map and defeated opponents, and supers that take only 1 minute to charge up, PvP is pretty hectic. Nobody really knows what they're doing because the game is new and everyone is just having a good time learning together. However, there is a huge problem in PvP. 2 exotic weapons, the Suros Regime and the Vex Mythoclast, are absurdly overpowered. Most people do not have these weapons, and whenever you face someone who does, you don't stand a chance. Like, it's not even close. This continued for a while, but now it's October 2014 and a new endgame PvP event called Iron Banner has just begun. It has brought with it some desperately needed nerfs for Vex and auto rifles including Suros. Iron Banner is attracting a wider audience to PvP and providing some really cool rewards, but overall it isn't revolutionary. At this point, it's common knowledge just how powerful the Gjallarhorn is, and unfortunately it's becoming increasingly common to see LFG posts requiring it just to do endgame activities like the Nightfall. This is a disturbing new trend in the community, but it just goes to show how insanely powerful and game-changing the Gjallarhorn really is. It's even in this new Taco Bell advertisement that just came out. Who knows though, maybe it'll get nerfed someday. It has now been 3 months since Destiny launched, and it's time for the first expansion, The Dark Below. This trailer comes out and everyone is excited about the massive pit on the moon, the new boss Crota, and the promise of new content. There's a new vendor in the tower named Eris Morn who is handling the new story and giving out bounties and loot. The story consists of only 4 missions, but they are pretty interesting and they're definitely higher quality than some of the vanilla story missions. The Undying Mind and the Will of Crota are 2 new strikes which still follow the same formula as other Destiny strikes, but it's good to have more strikes to play. There are also 3 new Crucible maps, so we now have a more respectable total of 15. Something players are immediately noticing is that vendors are now giving out level 31 gear, which instantly makes level 30 gear from the Vault of Glass completely worthless. We basically just spent 3 months grinding extremely hard to get max level gear just for it to all be sunset and made completely obsolete. We also have to buy an upgrade from Xur and then re-level every single exotic if we want them to be max level. So a lot of people are upset about the ridiculous amount of grind required just to keep the things that we already had. It seems like the most significant piece of content they're adding this expansion is the Crota's End raid. The Hive enemies in the raid feel really different from the Vex in the Vault of Glass. The raid is a ton of fun, and it is proof that Bungie is able to replicate the success that they found in the Vault of Glass. The raid also drops some insane loot like the Black Hammer, an insanely powerful sniper that generates infinite ammo out of thin air if you hit your headshots. Unfortunately, this expansion doesn't seem to address many of the core issues that we have with the game. The story is still pretty short, boring, and lacks sophistication. Players are extremely hungry for more cutscenes so that we can learn more about the story of the Destiny universe.
But if there's anything people want the absolute most, it's more storytelling. Yet again, the Grimoire cards are super interesting. Put it in the game.
Most of us are assuming that the Dark Below was mostly developed before the game launched, so there wasn't really time for Bungie to make any significant changes in reaction to our feedback. However, there is one huge quality of life improvement. You can now buy planetary materials at the tower. Gone are the days of spending 5 hours running around to patrol just to upgrade a single weapon. A few weeks later, players are still dissatisfied that the Dark Below hasn't addressed the problems with the game, but we're starting to appreciate some of the updates that the expansion has brought. There's a complete vendor refresh, meaning that there is plenty of exciting new loot to chase, including stuff like the Longbow Synthesis, the Plug 1, and the Badger CCL. There's also 4 new exotics and 9 new exotic armor pieces. Not bad. Oh, and there's also a Sparrow. The EV30 Tumbler is the first ever Sparrow with the ability to perform tricks, and it's a complete cure to everybody's boredom. Something incredible just happened. The legend himself has just beat Crota solo, completely without a fire team. Given that raids are designed for 6 people, most of us just assumed that soloing one would be impossible. However, now that Crota has been soloed, people are starting to realize that he isn't exactly that difficult, especially for a full fire team. There's even a new game-breaking glitch where unplugging your Ethernet cable from your console will make Crota just surrender and stay kneeling, giving players a free kill. As time goes on, people are still continuing to find more and more cheesy ways to complete each encounter in this raid, and it's starting to become somewhat of a joke. An entire roadmap for years and years of future Destiny content just got leaked by some guy on an Italian Destiny forum. Speculation is running rampant as everyone dissects this new information. People think that Comet is supposed to be an absolutely massive expansion taking place on a hive ship that will include multiple new subclasses, abilities, and weapons. Of course, there's no way to 100% confirm the validity of these leaks, but this is giving everyone hope for the future of the franchise. A few months have gone by and things are starting to feel really slow. There really hasn't been any new content in a while, so players are kinda having to make up their own content in order to find something to do.
And pound.
After what feels like an eternity, it's now April and something is going on with Bungie's website.
Hello again, my friends. Bungie has dropped an amazing April Fool's Day Easter egg. If you go to bungie.net to check out your Guardian, you'll see, well, this nonsense.
It's April 14th, 2015, and a Destiny update has just introduced a very interesting new world event. Fallen from the House of Wolves are randomly appearing on Earth, Venus, and the Moon, and if you defeat several waves of enemies, a special bounty target will spawn with a final wave. Defeating this final wave grants a buff called Ether Key, and this allows you to unlock a chest. The chest is really rewarding and provides legendary engrams, destination materials, and potentially a mysterious treasure key. We don't know what the treasure keys are for, but we do know that they will unlock something important in Destiny's next expansion, the House of Wolves. With the expansion just around the corner, this event has really built up a lot of hype for all of the new content that is about to hit us. But first, I'd like to tell you guys about Project Orochi because they just launched a special collection of Destiny-inspired hoodies and t-shirts. Project Orochi is a clothing brand inspired by Japanese mythology and art, and sometimes they also include subtle references to games like Destiny. We actually worked together to bring you guys a custom design inspired by my favorite Destiny class, the Hunter. Available on both hoodies and tees, the design goes on the back with the Orochi branding on the front. Also included in the Destiny collection is the Blam design. They were kind enough to send these out for me to try, and I can promise you the quality is great. These are not those low quality prints that start to fall off after a couple washes. They also have stuff inspired by games like Apex Legends, For Honor, Ghost of Tsushima, and honestly guys, these all look amazing. The Warden from For Honor is probably my favorite. There's also plenty of stuff not related to games. They have free shipping if you live in North America, so click the link in the video description and use code SHADOW for 10% off. Also follow the Project Orochi Instagram because they do giveaways and provide updates about cool new releases. Massive thanks to Project Orochi for sponsoring this video, and I hope you guys enjoy whatever you decide to pick up. It's May 2015, and the House of of Wolves expansion just dropped. Although players are extremely disappointed that there isn't a new raid, it looks like this expansion is going to be delivering a ton of content, and everyone is extremely excited. Players are immediately diving into the 5 new story missions and discovering a noticeable improvement over previous story missions. The narrative work in this expansion definitely feels a lot more polished and interesting. Upon completing these missions, players are being rewarded with a brand new type of weapon, the sidearm. Sidearms are close-range, rapid-fire weapons that utilize special ammo. Sidearms are cool and all, but what we're really excited about are the quality of life updates that have arrived with the House of Wolves. Perhaps the most significant one is the Etheric Light system. This allows us to ascend any item up to max level, so now every single activity in the game is relevant again, most notably the Vault of Glass. Another new system players are enjoying is weapon reforging. If you take your new weapons to the gunsmith, you can essentially re-roll them with a fresh set of perks. Perhaps the most relevant piece of new content is the Prison of Elders, a 3-player PvE activity where you progress through 4 levels with unique bosses. We learn that those mysterious treasure keys from the world event are actually used to get loot here in the Prison of Elders. The final boss, Skolas, is incredibly overtuned and is extremely difficult to beat. Many players are even saying this is the hardest PvE content the game has ever seen. We also get a new location called the Reef. This is a social space with vendors including Varix, Petra, and Brother Vance, the last of which is about to become extremely important over the weekend.
Come, test yourself in the trials. Find the way through the darkness.
Fast forward to Friday, and the very first Trials of Osiris has just begun. Everyone is hyped, loading into the Burning Shrine with ambitions of stacking up some wins on their card and getting the sweet new armor set and the Trials auto rifle, the Summoner. The meta in Trials is the Wild West. Every game is absolutely dominated by hand cannons, and the Thorn and the Last Word are the undisputed kings of PvP. Thorn can 2-tap with its burn ticking for a ridiculous 7 damage, and Last Word is hitting absurd 111 damage headshots, also giving it the ability to 2-tap. Hawkmoon is another ridiculously strong hand cannon that can 2-tap, and sometimes even 1-tap if you get really lucky, but it's only available for PlayStation players. Even though some are frustrated by this hand cannon insanity, Trials is a smashing success. This is the first time that PvP has really felt like it matters in the game, and literally everyone is jumping in to try it out regardless of their skill level. Those lucky enough to achieve a flawless victory are granted access to the Lighthouse, a brand new social space that is only accessible for people who have 9 wins and 0 losses on their Trials cards. The coveted golden chest and its amazing loot are extremely alluring. Adept weapons and special emblems are letting players show off their achievement in style. The loot and excitement are drawing so much attention to this mode that a mind-blowing 3,798,561 matches of Trials are played on this very first weekend. Destiny begins to become extremely popular on Twitch, as everyone wants to see people achieve flawless and potentially get a shot at a carry. A few months go by and things have started to settle down, but players are still excited to hop into Trials every weekend. On the other hand, the Prison of Elders is becoming extremely repetitive at this point, so it's not really as exciting as it was when it first came out. Overall though, there is a bit of a drought going on right now, and some people are taking a break as we wait for Destiny's next major expansion.
His name is Oryx, the Taken King. And he's coming for you, Guardian.
Bungie is revealing the Taken King at E3 2015 with a major trailer and some interviews with the developers. Players can instantly tell that this is going to be a massive expansion for the game, unlike anything we have ever seen. New subclasses, new exotics, new locations, new PvP maps, new strikes, new everything. This trailer made it clear that the Taken King is going to be amazing. It's August 14th. 2015. Xur is selling the almighty Gjallarhorn for the first time since that infamous second week. The news is absolutely breaking the internet as everyone rushes to get this absolutely iconic weapon.
Gjallarhorn, it's a no-brainer. Buy it now. Buy it before it gets nerfed so you can feel the full power of Destiny's most coveted rocket launcher.
This whole thing is pretty exciting, but players are still waiting with bated breath for Destiny's next expansion. As Bungie continues to drop little showcases of what is to come, everyone's anticipation for next month is at an all-time high. September 15th, 2015. The Taken King releases, and it's a smashing success. Everyone is jumping into the new expansion and finding that the hype that has been building for the last few months was not unwarranted. The immediately noticeable thing is the story. The narrative about Oryx, the cutscenes, and the character development is much more interesting and a massive improvement over year one. Ever since the launch, everyone has been begging for more interesting storylines and cinematic cutscenes, and the Taken King has finally delivered. The final story mission in particular really stands out. This is by far the coolest boss entrance that we have seen so far. The battle with Oryx actually feels like it matters and it's exciting, unlike many of the past missions that had a monotonous objective like defend your ghost. For the first time ever, it's feeling like Destiny is massively improving. The main new location is the Dreadnought, a spacefaring fortress ship filled with secrets, world bosses, and a new activity called the Court of Oryx. It is arguably the coolest location in the game so far, and it definitely feels the most complete and full of important things to do. The Taken, the first new enemy type since launch, feel really different than anything we've seen so far, and they're breathing new life into the PvE combat experience. Similar to the House of Wolves, the Taken King has introduced a new weapon type, the Sword. Players are praising these weapons for how fun and intuitive they are to use, and it's safe to say they have instantly become fan favorites. Every new class now has an additional subclass. Night Stalkers got introduced for Hunters, Stormcallers got introduced for Warlocks, and Sunbreakers got introduced for Titans. These really feel like the next generation of subclasses, and they're extremely powerful. It feels amazing for every class to now have 3 subclasses, finally making it so that each class has access to every elemental damage type. After a few days of this expansion, the greatest realization that players are having is that the Taken King has touched nearly every facet of the game and improved it in a truly meaningful way. There are 17 brand new exotic weapons and 18 exotic armor pieces that have been added to the game. Infusion now exists, allowing us to level up our stuff instead of replacing it. Vault space has doubled. There are over 100 new legendary weapons. The quest system was overhauled in a major way. You can now turn in bounties while in your menu instead of traveling all the way to the tower or the reef to speak to the vendor. For the very first time, there's a way to keep track of your exotic items. There are now kiosks in the tower where you can reclaim exotics after you dismantle them. In the past, if you dismantled an exotic, it was gone forever and you'd have to re-earn it. Similarly, there are additional kiosks for emblems, shaders, sparrows, ships, and emotes. This is a huge quality of life update. Keeping literally everything in your inventory or in your vault was an unbelievable hassle in year one. Perhaps the most monumental overhaul that is being universally praised is the new light leveling system. Players can now reach level 40 purely through experience, and your light level is now the average of all of your weapons and armor. The reason why this new light system is amazing is because light level will now steadily go up as you get new gear. In the past, when the max level was 30, for example, there would be huge jumps in how powerful your Guardian became because each level would make you like 30% more powerful. Ghosts are also getting some major updates that are much appreciated. There used to be only one ghost, but now there are many different shells with tons of bonuses and stats that make your ghost actually matter. The same is now true for class items as they now have a defense stat. Even just a day or two into the Taken King, players are overwhelmed by how amazing this expansion is. The game is thriving. It's a breath of fresh air for the player base, and everyone is breathing a deep sigh of relief. Bungie has listened. It's actually incredible how many of the problems we had in year one that were just resolved completely on a single day. Of course, nothing is perfect, and people do still have some complaints. All year one content, including all weapons and armor, is now completely irrelevant, which kind of sucks considering that we spent endless hours grinding it. But the thing is, it's mostly okay because there's just an overwhelming amount of new stuff that's making us forget what we lost and embrace the new Destiny. A few days later, it's time for the new raid, King's Fall. Since this raid is releasing just 3 days after the expansion, nobody really knows what they're doing, and very few players have made the sufficient raid preparations. Everyone is scrambling to just figure out the encounters, and there are several teams in the race for World's First. Even as the first few teams are making their way through the raid, something feels different. Mechanics actually matter, the enemies are threatening, and there is an epic scale to the raid that just sets it apart from its predecessors. Of course, this is partially because people are underleveled and nobody knows the optimal weapons yet, but this raid feels more difficult than Crota in a good way. As teams reach the final boss room for the first time, nobody is prepared for what happens next.
Okay, nope.
Oryx is a pretty difficult boss, and it's taking teams hours to figure it out. But finally, after 7 hours total in the raid, this happens.
Yeah!
As more and more people complete the raid in the following days, King's Fall is unanimously dubbed the best raid in Destiny history. Everyone is commenting about how fun the encounters are and how cool the environment is, even though they're all constantly failing to jump onto these ships because there's no mantle mechanic, and they're getting absolutely decimated by this wall that pushes you off into the void below. Just a few days after the raid, players are starting to notice something very odd going on within a daily heroic story mission. The Ghost now has a new voice line that says,
"Strange. I'm picking up a fallen distress beacon."
As you go off of the normal path, you take this elevator up to a fallen ship that now has a new area opened up. A few seconds later, you encounter some Taken invading the moon. Varix tells you that this ship is out of the Fallen's control and that you should clear out all of the Taken. A strange timer pops up, telling you that you have 10 minutes to complete this objective. This mission is not easy at all, but those who are skilled enough to make it to the final room find a big Taken boss named Drivix. If you manage to clear every single enemy, including the boss, it happens.
Taken will not rest. We'll claim every
A secret exotic named Black Spindle is awarded. The news of this secret mission and secret exotic is absolutely breaking the internet. Completely secret missions in online multiplayer games basically don't exist, so this is a completely new concept that has everyone intrigued. Just like its predecessor, the Black Hammer, this sniper is an absolute beast for clearing out PvE content. If you hit 3 headshots, it instantly refills the entire magazine from reserves, letting you deal massive damage and never reload. This weapon instantly becomes renowned in the Destiny community as millions of players jump into the mission and get their very own Black Spindle. A few weeks into the Taken King, it's really evident that this expansion has substantially improved the core of Destiny. It was not just designed to generate hype, it was designed to address the core issues of the game and make it enjoyable for months to come. The core activities, being Crucible and Strikes, got some massive updates that make them playable and interesting again. There are 4 new strikes that actually have some mechanics and are a lot better than the older strikes. In addition, 3 of the older strikes are now infected with the Taken. This really makes Destiny feel like an evolving world, which is ultimately Bungie's goal. As for PvP, we got an astounding 8 Crucible maps, 3 new Crucible modes, and a slew of sandbox changes that are making PvP feel completely different than it did in year 1. These investments into the core activities in the game are definitely giving the Taken King some longevity. PvP is easily the most replayable activity in Destiny, and all of these new maps and modes are making it feel fresh, even months after the expansion released. Another massively successful addition is strike-specific loot. Each strike now has a piece of loot that can only be acquired from that strike. This loot is also thematically paired to each strike, so for the first time it actually feels like you're looting the strike and taking the enemy's stuff. For example, these Scion cloaks are acquired by defeating the Scion bosses in the Dust Palace. Popular weapons like Grasp of Malak are also dropping from these strikes, making them relevant and actually replayable. You really gotta grind for a while if you want to get a perfect roll on one of these weapons. The treatment of the core playlists in the Taken King is amazing, and it's overwhelmingly popular among the player base. Everyone loves that they have a reason to play strikes and PvP, and it's giving us something to do while we wait for future updates. As time goes on, players are starting to discuss one of the more controversial additions to the game, the Eververse store. Along with its currency called Silver, Eververse allows players to spend real-life money to purchase emotes within the game. This is the first presence of microtransactions in Destiny, and some players are understandably skeptical and afraid that the game might become pay-to-win. However, since it's limited to just emotes so far, it doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. There's another thing that's keeping people interested and logging in every week called Arms Day. There's a new system where the gunsmith offers weekly orders where you can request packages in order to get certain unique weapons. These weapons each have some unique quality to them, which makes them sought after for one reason or another. Arms Day is also nice because it gives the gunsmith an actual function other than just being a place to buy basic materials. Despite the strong core activities, as time goes by, it's becoming clear that we are entering a content drought. Bungie announces that they are shifting away from DLCs and towards events, and this means there will not be any expansions this winter or spring. This is pretty disappointing for players who were expecting upcoming expansions, but at least the events are giving people something to look forward to. October 2015 rolls around and there's a brand new event in the tower called the Festival of the Lost. This Halloween-themed event is hosted by Eva Levante and is bringing us new masks, quests, emotes, and some surprise tower decorations. This insane-looking blue skull mask is by far the most sought-after item in this event. Unfortunately, the loot is obtained from these ridiculous RNG loot boxes, and some of the loot is exceedingly rare. Since these loot boxes can also be purchased with real money, some people are spending quite a lot of cash, and this event has quickly gotten the nickname of Festival of the Cost. The content drought continues, but Destiny is set to reveal some new content at the PlayStation Experience 2015 event in December. The time finally comes, and they reveal Sparrow Racing League, a 3-week competitive racing experience. This is instantly far more interesting and popular than Festival of the Lost, and it has arrived complete with new sparrows, shaders, and even armor being available for players to earn through a record book. Overall, this event is pretty well received, and we're happy to have something to do. Racing around on the tracks with 6 other players is fun and unlike anything else in Destiny, but heading into the new year, the event ends and we have resumed the dreaded content drought. As time drags on, players are starting to take breaks from the game. The Taken King brought such a massive influx of new content, but now that it has been a few months, most players have finished the bulk of the content and they don't really have much to do. People are getting a little bit desperate. We don't even have private matches or any type of custom environment where we can mess around. Will we even get a new expansion this year? When is Destiny 2 coming? Nobody knows. It's now February, and we're witnessing perhaps the most irrelevant new content drop of all time. The Crimson Days has delivered a 2v2 PvP mode named Crimson Doubles. It has a strange feature where if your teammate dies, you get a buff called Broken Heart until your teammate comes back. There are a few random cosmetics, and the tower has a new look for the duration of the event, but overall, the event is not doing much to combat the extreme burnout that most players are feeling. People had hoped that these seasonal events would actually have some substance, but it's now becoming clear that they are pretty gimmicky and players aren't really interested. April finally brings us something to be excited about. The much anticipated April update is here. The max light level has been increased to 335, there's a new revamped version of the Prison of Elders called the Challenge of Elders, and there's some revamped loot that people are pretty excited about. And the best part? It's completely free. When you think about it, it's kind of staggering how many weapons and exotics have returned in this mid-year update for the sweet price of $0. With a total of 40 returning items, these new additions are definitely mixing up the Year 2 sandbox. Some particularly notable weapons include the Shadow Price, the LDR, and the Longbow Synthesis. Since these are obtained through the Vanguard and the Crucible, this is a pretty strong incentive to play those core activities even more. There's also some brand new armor sets, but one in particular is really catching everyone's attention. The Taken-themed Desolate armor looks absolutely amazing, and it can be obtained by opening mystery boxes called Sterling Treasure. You can get these by playing activities like Prison of Elders, and they can also be bought from the Eververse store with real money. Again, the continuing rise of microtransactions is annoying players. Even though these real money items are only cosmetics, that isn't stopping players from complaining all over the internet. These treasure boxes can also drop other armor that is compatible with a new cosmetic system called Chroma. These can be applied to select armor sets to give them a red, blue, yellow, or white glow. Pretty cool. Perhaps the best quality of life update that we're all happy about is one-to-one infusion. When you infuse something in the past, it would only level it up part of the way. It was so confusing that we even had to use a calculator to figure it out. Thankfully, infusing something will now fully level it up to the level of the infused item, making everything easier and less convoluted. Overall, people are pretty satisfied with this update. It was a much needed stimulus that's revitalizing some interest in the game as we wait for Destiny's next big expansion. The content drought resumes and we enter a pretty dark period of time. Months go by with literally nothing happening, and people are understandably pretty bored. There's also some pretty frustrating things going on within the game. For instance, the accuracy stat on most precision weapons is absolutely atrocious. People are starting to notice that hand cannons and scout rifles in particular are super inconsistent, and the bullets will just randomly miss. Other issues like awful lag and an assortment of glitches are making the gameplay experience less than ideal. But there is hope on the horizon. Destiny's next big DLC, Rise of Iron, will be arriving in September. Rise of Iron drops, and it's an utter disaster on day one. There are constant pop-ups of contacting Destiny servers and an onslaught of taper error codes. Literally nobody is able to play the game right now. There are even reports of people being stuck in the 300,000th place in the queue to log into the game. We know to expect a bit of instability on new Destiny releases, but this disastrous launch just takes it to a whole new level. We've known about Saladin and the Iron Banner for a long time, so this campaign really fills in some of the backstory surrounding him and the Iron Lords. Overall, the story is pretty good, but it's notably shorter and less extensive than the Taken King. Everyone playing Destiny at this point is pretty excited about several iconic exotics making their return. Most notably, Thorn and Galahorn are back. And although they aren't as overpowered as they once were, players are happy to be reunited with some of their favorite weaponry. One of the most interesting new things are the Iron Lord artifacts. These items provide unique bonuses that completely change how you play the game, and everyone wants to get their hands on them. From improving your radar to allowing you to reflect stuff with your sword, these artifacts are incredibly powerful. A cool quality of life artifact is the Memory of Yolder. It removes the sprint cooldown. Normally there is an extremely annoying mechanic where if you stop sprinting, you can't start again for a few seconds. This absolutely sucks for anyone who wants to move around fast, especially in PvP, so we're pretty excited to finally have a way to avoid this mechanic. Rise of Iron has brought multiple new locations, including a brand new social space called the Iron Temple. There's some really cool things to do here, like climbing Fellwinter's Peak or ringing the bells in the right order for an achievement. There's also a previously blocked off area in the Cosmodrome called the Plaguelands. This area looks amazing and has lava and Siva everywhere, but there aren't too many secrets or cool things to uncover. Within the Plaguelands, there's also the Archon's Forge, an arena with different tiers of difficulty and an especially notable fusion rifle reward, Saladin's Vigil. This expansion also seems to be reinforcing the concept of evolving Destiny over time. Lots of enemies and locations have been infused with Siva, which makes them feel fresh and new again. In addition to the new strike, 2 older strikes have been Sivified, also contributing to the concept of an evolving Destiny universe. Sepix Prime in particular is pretty popular among the community, especially with this new epic soundtrack that was actually made by a Destiny fan. 3 days after launch, it's time for the new raid, the Wrath of the Machine. Similar to the Taken King, players had a few days to prepare, and this time, hardcore teams took it pretty seriously. They leveled up so much to the point where the teams out-leveled the raid itself, giving them a hefty advantage. The first encounter is pretty straightforward, but people are immediately noticing the insane siege engine encounter coming up next. The fight takes place on top of the Cosmodrome wall. This is easily the most unique and arguably one of the coolest raid encounters we have ever seen. Getting to ride the siege engine, bust through some barricades, and then finally witness the entire thing plummet into the water below is unlike anything we've seen before, and players are loving it. As the first teams move on to the final boss, Axis, there's a lot of enemies, bombs, and buffs at play here, and it's pretty difficult to make heads or tails of any of it. After a while though, Clan Redeem accidentally discovers the main stun mechanic, and this seems to be a massive breakthrough. Soon after, their team, including Tfue, Modern Tryhard, and Error, take down Axis and secure the world's first raid completion with a total time of about 2 hours. The immediate reaction from the community is that the raid might not be so good considering how fast it was cleared, and some people are upset that it doesn't have the same epic scale as King's Fall. However, as more players get a chance to try the raid, everyone is beginning to appreciate it and its unique encounters, especially the Siege Engine and Axis, and it's generally considered to be a great raid overall. As week 1 of the expansion comes to a close, it's clear that Rise of Iron has delivered, but just not maybe in the way players were expecting. Since the Taken King left the overall game in a really good state, Rise of Iron isn't really innovating too much or changing the core of the game. It is providing more of the same, which honestly is a pretty good thing. People are happy to finally return to the game after the content drought, and there's a ton of new stuff for everyone to sink their teeth into. Although Rise of Iron isn't quite as robust as Taken King, it's still a very substantial expansion that brings a lot to the table. PvP players are really happy because we finally got what we've been requesting for years, private matches. You can now go into a private match whenever you want to test new items, mess around with your friends, and just generally have a fun time. PvP also got 4 new maps, a mode called Supremacy, and Iron Banner got a complete overhaul to make it more interesting. The Crucible is generally in a pretty good state after all of these additions. No expansion would be complete without loot, and it's clear that the Rise of Iron has done a pretty good job in this category. There are 5 new exotic weapons and armor pieces in addition to a vendor refresh and a world loot refresh. This means that basically every activity in the game is dropping brand new loot, making the loot feel fresh and meaningful. Vendors are selling new weapons like the Palindrome and the Clever Dragon, making them really relevant for everyone. Strikes continue to have the insanely amazing and popular strike-specific loot system, but now it's even better with the Skeleton Key system that allows you to target farm and reliably get the exact loot that you want. With new additions like the Devil's Dawn Sniper Rifle, strike-specific loot is more appealing than ever. Another thing players are discovering is the new ornament system. This allows for further customization of certain armor sets and exotic weapons to drastically change their appearance, and so far it is very well received. Giving a completely new appearance to certain exotics is pretty cool, especially if their base model was not particularly appealing. This ornament system also applies to the brand new Trials of Osiris cat armor. This set is popular to begin with, but when you equip the prestigious flawless ornaments to make the armor glow, it looks absolutely amazing. It is perhaps the most coveted armor set in the game right now. Unfortunately, there is something absolutely plaguing the Trials of Osiris. The Memory of Scori is an artifact that rewards bonus super energy if you stand near a teammate who has their super, so Trials has devolved into just huddling together and waiting until you get a super. This is probably the worst possible meta, and it's extremely painful to play, but people are still enduring to get that cat armor and glowy ornaments. October rolls around, and with it, another version of the Halloween event, Festival of the Lost. This event is basically the same as last year, so it is being received about as you might expect. However, there is one shader called Super Black, which is extremely popular among the community, so at least there's something that people really want to grind for. It's the holiday season again, and this time the Dawning event has brought some random free presents in the tower, the return of Sparrow Racing League with 2 new maps, and a brand new strike scoring system. Overall, this holiday event feels a whole lot more interesting than the past ones, and it comes with new ornaments, sparrows, chromas, and a ton of sparrow horns. The best part is, these things can all be realistically acquired without spending $1 million on Eververse. 2 strikes have been updated with new mechanics in Siva, and the strike scoring system comes complete with medals and an on-screen tally to track the points you rack up. Overall, this Dawning event actually has some substance and players are really happy. However, some were hoping that the strike scoring system would include in-game leaderboards and competitions to see who could get the highest score, but unfortunately it looks like this isn't going to happen. As time goes on though, everyone's attention is shifting to the next big content update. Age of Triumph is free and is immediately super popular among the community. Every single raid has been updated to be max light level and now has tons of new loot, including these absolutely amazing sets of ornaments. These sets actually look like they thematically belong in the raids they come from, and the community has quickly decided that this is the best looking armor the game has ever seen. The raids also include new exotic ornaments and exotic primary weapons like Fatebringer Adept with elemental burns. Raids aren't the only thing getting a facelift with this update. Strikes now have this Daybreak mode, which is kinda like Mayhem. With tougher enemies and increased recharge rate across the board, these ability spam simulators are just a ton of fun. A handful of strikes also got updated with new mechanics, graphics, and rewards, further demonstrating Bungie's commitment to keeping the core playlists interesting. The Age of Triumph has also brought a massive new record book with brand new rewards for veteran players, and everyone is hard at work completing and unlocking all of the pages. Destiny feels like it has reached an absolute peak. Almost every single activity that has ever been in the game feels relevant, rewarding to play, and worth your time. Strikes, PvP, Challenge of the Elders, raids, and even weekly story missions have all been revamped with new loot and new incentive to make the entirety of Destiny feel important for players. However, there is a new update that has become pretty unpopular in PvP. Special ammo has now become absurdly rare because you don't spawn with any, and the resulting shift in the meta has basically ruined the PvP experience. The optimal way to play the game now involves using sidearms because they're the only special weapon that still spawns with ammo, and then stuff like No Land Beyond, a primary sniper, and Icebreaker, which regenerates ammo for free. Since sticky grenades also one-shot and basically lock onto players with ridiculous tracking, they've also risen to the top of the meta and they're unbelievably frustrating to play against. Even though PvP players are struggling, the overall game is in a really good place as we move forward through 2017. Bungie just dropped the Rally the Troops worldwide revealed trailer for Destiny's sequel, Destiny 2. The video is trending on YouTube, and as it picks up millions and millions of views, everyone is talking about Destiny 2, not just Destiny 1 fans. As we get our first look at the game, we're introduced to the main bad guy, Gaul, and we get to see some familiar faces like Cayde and Zavala. As more and more info starts to come out about Destiny 2, hype is reaching unprecedented levels. The Destiny 2 gameplay reveal is our first glimpse into how the in-game stuff actually looks, and it looks insane. Fans and content creators alike have extremely high hopes for this game.
Destiny has potential. It always has, since the launch. Destiny 2 is the final chance to prove to the public that Destiny is worth their time. It is Bungie's chance to show the active community that they've learned from their mistakes. It's their time to fix the big problems that the game has had. The game's only gotten better, and I think we're only going to get better.
Meanwhile, Destiny 1 is reaching a new low. With Bungie basically putting 99% of their resources towards Destiny 2, there isn't exactly a lot of interesting stuff going on in Destiny 1. Rise of Iron and Age of Triumph have left the game in a really good place, but that can only go on for so long without any new updates at all. Especially now that we know Destiny 2 is coming in September, players are losing motivation to grind Destiny 1 since nothing will carry over to the new game. Content creators are struggling. Viewership from many YouTubers reaches an all-time low, but they're still hopeful since Destiny 2 is on the horizon.
that day has arrived. That day we've been waiting for.
Bungie has an hour-long presentation where we actually get to learn some of the finer details about D2. Game director Luke Smith is talking a lot about opening the game up to new audiences, including PC players, and people could not be more excited. The new story seems compelling. The idea of being defeated in our own city, losing all our powers, and having to fight against the Red Legion to regain our space magic all sounds epic. With promises of reimagining and rebalancing a new 4v4 Crucible, it looks like PvP is going to be amazing.
So we got new maps, we got new modes, and we believe this is the best PvP offering that Destiny has ever seen.
But most of all, players are excited for this.
Now, you can launch all of the new activities in the world without going to orbit.
Players have been eagerly awaiting this beta ever since Destiny 2 was announced, and everyone is excited to get their hands on the brand new game for the first time. The beta features the very first story mission called Homecoming, a strike called the Inverted Spire, a new social space called The Farm, and 2 different types of PvP. The control and countdown modes are featured on the Midtown and Endless Vale maps. We're all very interested to see the brand new supers like Dawnblade, Arcstrider, and a new roaming version of Fist of Havoc. There are also these new abilities called class abilities. Hunters now have a dodge, kind of like the Shade Step that we have in Destiny 1, Titans have a barricade, and Warlocks have a rift. These really give each class a bit more identity, which is great to see. Veteran players are quick to notice some huge quality of life improvements, like the removal of the sprint cooldown and the addition of a mantle mechanic that is amazing and actually life-saving. The first thing that veteran players are immediately having issues with is the double primary system. Destiny 2 has 2 primary weapons, and then all other types of weapons like snipers, shotguns, and rocket launchers require power ammo. Overall, in the beta, Guardians don't feel as powerful as they did in Destiny 1. The time to kill in PvP is really long, the movement speed is slow, and there are so few abilities in PvE that you kind of feel weak. It takes 3 melees to defeat other people in PvP. Some players are becoming kind of pessimistic about these changes, but most of us are reserving judgment for the release of the full game. After all, this is just a beta. Things will definitely get better, right? With more trailers releasing and more information being unveiled, Destiny 2 pre-orders go through the roof and everybody is hyped for the new game. As September rolls around, many Destiny 1 players log off the game for the final time, and we are ready for the transition to Destiny 2. As millions of players jump into the game for the first time, everyone is progressing through the campaign missions. Even after just a few missions, it's becoming clear that the story is way better than what we had at Destiny 1 launch. With standout missions like Homecoming and then boarding the Almighty to disable its weapon, there are some really unique and compelling parts about the campaign. People are starting to finish the campaign and they're jumping into new adventures and lost sectors as they explore the new planets. From the methane oceans of Titan to the mysteries of Io, there's a lot to uncover. The EDZ in particular is pretty amazing because it's the largest open world location ever created for the Destiny franchise. That sense of mystery from Destiny 1 has returned, and although it is to a lesser degree, everyone is still excited and very curious to become acquainted with all of the new characters and locations. We're all in the honeymoon phase for the game right now. Some players have their concerns, but overall, players are loving Destiny 2. D2 has followed in D1's footsteps and is breaking a ton of records for sales and player counts. Bungie has even confirmed on Twitter that right now, at this exact moment, there are 1.2 million people playing Destiny 2. Everyone is grinding new public events, side quests, strikes, and PvP while going for a higher level, and increasing that light level has become an obsession for most players. After the long content droughts of Destiny 1, players are returning with a renewed motivation to grind, and many of us are putting in a lot of hours right now. With 1 week of gameplay now behind us, it's time for the first raid in Destiny 2, the Leviathan. Apart from being an absolutely massive ship the size of a planet, the location design is extremely unique. Some of the mechanics like stand on this plate are kind of basic, but the overall impression is that this is an okay raid. With only one boss fight, it's clear that this raid doesn't hold up against some of the Destiny 1 greats like King's Fall and Wrath of the Machine, but some parts like the Void Room are truly amazing. The Destiny 2 version of Trials of Osiris has just begun, and it's been rebranded as Trials of the Nine. Featuring a loading screen that lasts about 3 hours, and this new map, Trials is definitely a much different experience. Especially with it having a new aesthetic and being 4v4 countdown, Trials feels like a very mysterious and strange activity on week 1. Right now, we're in a team shot meta, where basically everyone walks around extremely slowly while holding hands with their teammates and using weapons like Uriel's Gift and Mida Multitool. Once you get some wins, you get to fly around on these platforms, which is pretty cool, and you also get to fall down a massive tube and speak with a giant head if you go flawless. As time goes on and the hype wears off, the flaws in Destiny 2 are starting to become painfully noticeable. The game has no random roll weapons, so once you get a certain weapon, that's it. There's literally zero benefit of ever getting it again. But you will get it again, over and over and over. It's unbelievably frustrating to turn in your hard-earned tokens to a vendor just to get an exact replica of a weapon you already have. It's completely meaningless. There are very few perks, almost zero weapon customization, and the mods are so boring because they literally just increase your kinetic weapon's attack value by 5. Weapon and armor mods are also stored in your inventory, making it a total hassle to manage them. The same is true for shaders. Shaders are now stored in your inventory and they are consumable. This is an absolute nightmare. People are getting really annoyed as their inventory, vault, and postmaster start to fill up with shaders that have to be painstakingly dismantled one by one. Although brand new and overly casual players are pretty satisfied with the game at the moment, Destiny 1 veterans are becoming increasingly unhappy with the game. For many, Destiny 2 feels like a watered-down version of Destiny 1. It feels shallow. Plenty of amazing D1 features like random roll weapons and private matches are not in Destiny 2 for seemingly no reason at all. People are asking stuff like, how did we go from a fully customizable subclass to these 2 restrictive subclass trees? Why did they remove the intellect, discipline, and strength stats? Why do my abilities take 2 minutes to charge up in PvE? Why is ammo for snipers and shotguns so incredibly rare? Why is the movement speed so slow? There are so many unanswered questions, and the players are understandably quite frustrated. The first Iron Banner comes around and it's pretty lackluster. Sure, it's cool to get some new gear from it, but other than that, it's basically just the same as regular Crucible. It also runs on the token system, something that people are beginning to get really frustrated about. It seems that tokens have infiltrated every crevice of the game at this point. Instead of dropping loot, most activities just drop tokens, which you then have to go turn in at vendors. When you turn in the tokens, it's like a slot machine. You spend tokens and then you get something random. And it's probably worthless because it's probably something that you already have. There's a new event this week called the Faction Rally. Each Guardian signs up for a faction, and then there is a competition to see who can earn the most points in a week. Whichever faction wins will sell a certain weapon for players to buy, and you get a discount if you support that faction. It's now October, and the PC version of Destiny 2 has just released in partnership with Blizzard on Battle.net. Seemingly every single high-profile content creator and streamer has decided that they want to try Destiny 2. With the PC beta and the PC launch, Destiny is finally getting its chance to reach the widest audience possible and potentially become one of the most popular games out there. People like Shroud, Ninja, Dr. Disrespect, Summit1G, Tim the Tatman, and basically every creator who has ever played a game is playing Destiny right now. Unfortunately, it seems like none of these creators are here to stay. After what seems like just a few days, they've all left. This is likely due to the laundry list of problems that are piling up, but as these problems become more and more obvious, content creators are not hesitating to voice their concerns. As we move into November, we have hopes that Destiny 2's first expansion, Curse of Osiris, will address some of the many problems that we're facing. A few weeks later, Bungie is now revealing some information about the Curse of Osiris with a series of live streams and trailers. And it's not looking good.
Now let's check this out. I promised before that this was the most rewarding public event. And there we have it. We have 2 chests.
The most rewarding public event in the new DLC is going to give you 2 tokens and a blue piece of gear. The monotonous public event grind and the overall token system are easily 2 of the most despised things in the game right now, and it looks like that isn't going to change as we head into the next expansion. People are kinda disappointed. Meanwhile, some people have discovered that Bungie is throttling our experience gains. The more you play, the less experience you earn. Considering that experience rewards you with bright engrams, aka Eververse engrams, people are assuming that this is a sneaky way of making us spend more money. It's now December 2017, and the Curse of Osiris has just released. Players venture off to Mercury with a story centered around Osiris and the Vex. The new Mercury destination looks pretty cool, but unfortunately it's extremely small, and there's literally nothing to do there unless you want to do a public event to get that amazing 2 tokens and a blue. There are 8 new story missions, with 2 of them being recycled strikes, and overall the player base isn't too excited about this. The fight against Panoptes is pretty interesting and probably the best part of the campaign. The Infinite Forest is another big part of the campaign, and the whole idea of having unique and randomly generated platforms is pretty cool, but in practice, not so much. You just fight some random enemies, unlock a door, and continue on your way. One of the new weapons, Prometheus Lens, is hilariously overpowered. It deals like 10 times more damage than anything else in the game, and Crucible is being overrun with ridiculous laser battles. It's hilarious, but in the sort of depressing kind of way. The only redeeming quality of this expansion seems to be the new Leviathan raid lair. This is essentially just a tiny add-on raid that is cool, and the boss is especially epic, but considering the current state of the game, it is absolutely not making people excited. At this point, many Destiny content creators have given up hope. As interest in the game continues to decline, many Destiny YouTubers are simply quitting and moving on to other games. There's this new game called Fortnite that is starting to become really popular, and some Destiny streamers have just completely swapped over to that game instead. The Dawning event is arriving, and it has a ton of new loot, except a staggering 95% of it is in Eververse. Suffice it to say, nobody is really happy with this event. On the bright side, there is now mayhem in PvP, which is a kind of fun way to shake things up. As 2018 begins, it feels like we're entering the darkest period in the history of the franchise. Veteran and dedicated players have been upset with the state of the game for months, and now even the most casual players are starting to run out of things to do. Destiny 2 has literally no endgame, no challenging activities to beat, no loot to chase, no replayability whatsoever. The game is so simple, and it lacks the depth and intrigue that made Destiny 1 so successful. It's clear that Bungie set out to make Destiny 2 appealing to a wide audience, but it appears that in the process, they've made it appealing to nobody. Internally, over at Bungie, the developers are terrified. The weekly player count is plummeting like never before. At the end of February 2018, Bungie does the math. If this decline continues at current rates for just 5 more weeks, there will not be anyone left playing Destiny 2. We are quite literally 1 month away from the death of the entire Destiny franchise.
We have heard the feedback of, my guns don't feel powerful enough, I don't feel powerful enough, and so we looked at everything. We looked at the way you move, the way your supers come back, and especially the way the weapons play. For tomorrow's update, we've drastically increased your super regeneration. Weapons are gonna hit harder, like abilities are gonna come faster, hero moments are gonna make a return. This is a motion towards what we all believe is the right direction.
Bungie has just dropped the Go Fast update, which is being met by universal applause. As the name suggests, we literally now just go faster, stuff recharges faster, and the gameplay is a lot more fun. Strike-specific loot is back. There's now exciting weapons like DFA and Silicon Neuroma dropping from certain strikes. Since these are of course static rolls, you only need to get them once, but still, it's a good addition to the game. There's also the first 6v6 Crucible mode with the return of Iron Banner, and although Destiny is far from saved, there's at least some things that players are happy about. Warmind drops in May 2018, and it's not bad. There's a brand new campaign on Mars focusing on Rasputin, Anna Bray, Zol, and the Hive. Overall, the story isn't the best thing Bungie has ever made, and it kind of feels like another side quest, but at least we can now use epic javelins. The thing that we're all excited about is that we finally feel heard, at least to some degree. At long last, Bungie is implementing some changes that address the core problems with the game. Stuff like Escalation Protocol is good because it's a new difficult activity that actually has some worthwhile loot. The more phases you go through, the harder the enemies become, and the better the loot gets. Awesome. The game is finally getting some of the things it should have had at launch. There are now private Crucible matches, ranked Crucible, and an actual meaningful reward for playing the Crucible in the form of Redrick's Claymore. The Crucible is far from perfect, but this is a huge improvement. There's a lot of new exotics like Sleeper Simulant, Polaris Lance, Worldline Zero, and some exotic weapon tuning. Graviton Lance is now insane, especially in PvP. We also got another raid lair, the Spire of Stars. This one is definitely a step up from the previous raid lair, and it is pretty difficult, but unfortunately it also is kind of worthless from a loot perspective. The fusion and the sidearm are not very good, and the armor is 99% the same as the previous raid lair, making it basically irrelevant. Warmind certainly isn't fixing everything wrong with the game, but it's taking steps in the right direction, and giving players hope that Destiny 2 might not be totally doomed. It feels like the game is definitely in a better state than it was during Curse of Osiris, and we're thinking that maybe, just maybe, we can continue this upward trajectory of improvement. June rolls around, and Bungie is continuing their tradition of dropping absolute banger news at E3. But this year, they've decided to shock the entire Destiny community like never before. We've just witnessed an unprecedented story reveal, showing the death of Cayde, one of Destiny's most beloved characters. The community is reacting about as you might expect. Going forward, one thing is for certain. Nobody is going to be complaining about this story being boring. As more and more news about the next expansion called Forsaken continues to be revealed, it seems like it's shaping up to be a top-tier DLC. It's a random Friday in July, and there's a post about some lost sector that is trending on Reddit. This all seems kind of boring at first, but as you read on, there seems to be something very strange going on. It has a Taken theme, a 20-minute timer, and the mission is named The Whisper. There has been no news, no leaks, and no videos about this, but Destiny 1 veterans who remember the Black Spindle secret mission are starting to suspect that this might be another secret mission.
It is a timed secret quest in a Taken location. That screams Black Spindle. It's about to start here, guys.
With players beginning to explore deeper into the Lost Sector, there's this massive underground jumping puzzle area that seems to be the way to progress the mission. It's taking a while to explore, and parts of it are rather challenging. It feels like each room is more confusing than the last. Finally, after hours of failed attempts, people are beginning to reach a room with tons of enemies, and it's no joke. This room is really difficult to clear, even for the most dedicated players. Next, there's another room with even more Taken, and knights are spraying fire everywhere. Finally, players are dropping down into this room that has not one, not two, but 3 extremely powerful bosses in it. After tons of failed attempts, something has finally happened. The reward for completing the mission is the Whisper of the Worm, an exotic sniper rifle with the original white nail perk in all its glory. This entire mission is just so unexpected that everyone is going insane. Everyone wants this new sniper, and it's quickly proving to be perhaps the best weapon in the entire game. This mission, its secrets, and its rewards are truly special. As news of this discovery spreads like crazy, it's clear that this is one of the coolest things to happen in Destiny history. It's now time for a new event called the Solstice of Heroes. This involves higher difficulty campaign missions and rewards some pretty sweet looking armor. This is some of the best looking armor in the game, and it doesn't require you to spend $1,000 on Eververse. Players are enjoying this event, but as we inch closer to September, everyone's attention is focused on the upcoming launch of Forsaken. Forsaken drops in September 2018, and at least on day one, it is absolutely living up to the hype. The story content is insane. With a new, darker, more immersive, and meaningful tone, the Forsaken campaign knocks it out of the park. Cade's death, while being quite sad, adds a whole new level of meaning for veteran players, and for the first time in ages, players are actually feeling invested in a Destiny narrative campaign. The prison break missions are amazing. The new Scorn enemies are formidable and gritty, and the new destinations are some of the best we have ever seen. The Tangled Shore is a brand new lawless frontier of asteroids that are strapped together, and there's tons of thieves, pirates, and all types of new enemies. The Scorn Barons are particularly unique. Each hunt features totally unique mechanics and battles that are appropriate for each Baron, with stuff like fake engrams for the Trickster and epic Sparrow chases for the Rider. As players are taking down these Barons and fighting through the new campaign, the new weapon system really begins to shine. Forsaken has completely overhauled the infamous double primary system, and players are now ecstatic to have complete freedom to use whatever weapon they want in whatever slot they want. Shotguns, snipers, and fusions have been moved back to special ammo, and they can now go in the kinetic or energy slots. As a Bungie dev pointed out in the Vidoc, you can even run 3 shotguns simultaneously if you want to, or 3 snipers. Random roll weapons are also back. Finally, getting a weapon for the 2nd, 3rd, or 10th time is now meaningful again. Each subclass now has a new middle tree node, including brand new abilities and supers.
New supers, yeah, crazy new supers.
What's your favorite?
Fire knives are awesome.
Whether it's the fire knives, teleporting Nova explosions, or massive flaming hammers, these new supers and subclass trees are exciting and exactly what we needed to freshen up the sandbox. These supers are really fun, and for the most part, more powerful than the older supers, and we are really starting to find this out as we complete the IO mission and unlock them for the first time. People are just having a blast as they go out into the wild and try out all of these new builds, abilities, and epic supers. As players complete the campaign, they're introduced to the second destination of this expansion, the Dreaming City. First of all, it's absolutely groundbreaking that we did get 2 destinations with this expansion. The whole community is extremely happy about this, especially considering the quality of both of these locations. Second, the Dreaming City is a true endgame destination with unique loot and a substantial amount of content even after the campaign. With an absolutely breathtaking skybox and unique features throughout, this is one of the best Destiny locations to date. With tons of secrets to uncover and new areas to explore, players are loving the Dreaming City. This destination is also said to evolve over time, so each week there will be a new Ascendant challenge for us to take on for some of that sweet Dreaming City loot. Gambit is the new core activity in the game, and it marries the 2 main parts of Destiny 2, PvP and PvE. So far, players are absolutely loving it. Gambit is extremely unique and is enjoyable for all types of players, so we are spending a lot of time in this mode. It feels like nobody knows how to actually play the mode right now, and almost every game there is a player who is refusing to bank their motes for some inexplicable reason. We do know that Gambit will be evolving sometime next year, so it remains to be seen how successful this core activity will be in the long run. As week 1 of Forsaken comes to a close, players are really satisfied with the new leveling system. There are now daily and weekly powerful drops in new locations and core activities, and there are also these new engrams called Prime Engrams that really help you along in the grind. We've also noticed a problem with Prime Engrams though. Every time you decrypt one, it seems to always turn into an Edge Transit grenade launcher. It's 10 days after the launch of Forsaken, and it's time for the raid, The Last Wish. The stakes have never been higher for a new raid. Bungie has revealed that this raid features more bosses than any raid before, and the winners of the world's first raid completion will receive a custom real-life belt to commemorate their achievement. Due to the new power leveling system, nobody, and I mean nobody, is ready for this raid. Even the most hardcore players who've barely slept in the last 10 days are going in underleveled, and this is going to make things really difficult. As we complete the first encounter, it is notably dropping a Seed of Light, the currency needed to unlock the new subclasses. As a few teams reach the Vault encounter, things are really starting to break down. Absolutely nobody has any clue how to do this encounter. People are sitting here for hours, in some cases up to 10 hours, and the only team to make it through this encounter relatively quickly did so because of pure luck. At this point, some people have gone to bed, gotten back up, and then found that the raid race is still going on. Finally, teams have reached the final boss, Riven of 1,000 Voices. This seems to be a very intricate fight with a ton of different mechanics at play, and people are having to draw maps of Riven's eyes and the symbols around the room to devise a strategy. At long last, something happens.
Come on, boys. Come on, boys. Come on, boys. Oh my... Wait.
But, to everyone's surprise, they aren't done yet. With a hidden second part of the encounter, players are now running Riven's heart while on a timer. With everyone being underleveled and the enemies being extremely powerful, this is a brutally difficult challenge. After almost 19 hours of work, Clan Redeem has finally cleared the raid. At the end of day 1, only one more team has managed to clear the raid, making this by far the hardest day 1 raid in the history of the franchise. But now that the raid has been beaten, it's starting to have an impact on other parts of the game. There's a new story mission from Petra. Taken is now creeping into the Dreaming City. There's a new primeval boss in Gambit, a new strike called Corrupted, a new Gambit map, and more. Having such notable things become unlocked at the completion of a raid is awesome, and this really makes the raid feel connected to the rest of the Destiny universe and ongoing story, unlike some of the previous raids. Similar to the beginning of Taken King, it feels like we're entering another golden age of the Destiny franchise. Everyone playing the game right now can recognize that this is a truly magical time and a comeback story for the ages. Just a few months ago, the game was almost completely dead, but now it feels like we've reached a new peak. In fact, weekly player numbers are actually even higher than the launch of the game, and player sentiment is through the roof. It's clear that Bungie has made Forsaken for Destiny fans who want endgame content and meaningful depth in the game. There are now titles and triumphs to chase and show off. Bounties have been reintroduced from Destiny 1, and there's even a new type of endgame activity called a dungeon, a 3-player mission that is kind of like a raid. The first dungeon, the Shattered Throne, is being met with universal praise from the community, with the only downside of it being that the loot is the same loot as the Dreaming City, so other than the Wish Ender, there isn't really a reason to run it. Compared to the Taken King, Forsaken isn't delivering quite as many improvements to strikes and Crucible, but there are still some absolutely huge updates to these activities. 5 new PvP maps, 4 new strikes, a new PvP mode, and a new PvP quest rewarding the extremely powerful Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten hand cannons. Trials of the Nine has been removed, and although some people are upset, most people are not because it was becoming rather unpopular, and without the presence of adept weapons, there wasn't really a reason to go flawless. Plus, DDoSing was on the rise, and there were even rumors of straight-up hacks being used. As time goes on, the quality of life improvements that came with Forsaken continue to shine. In many ways, this feels like a Destiny 3. There's finally a way to view in-game lore, something players have been asking about since 2014. There are 200 more vault slots. There's a collections menu to keep track of the hundreds of items in the game. Players are starting to unlock more and more of the 12 new exotic weapons and 12 new exotic armors, and man, are they powerful. Wiz Vest is giving players Spectral Blade supers that last for 3 minutes in the Crucible. One-Eyed Mask is giving players wall hacks, infinite health, overshields, and bonus damage. And Teus Wards can reflect literally anything back at your opponents and make you invincible. Geomag Stabilizers are giving Warlocks infinite chaos reach. Right now, it really is the Wild West out there. Destiny is not balanced at the moment, but undeniably, it is fun. And this is something the game has been lacking ever since launch. Feedback feels addressed, and times are good. Moving forward, we're entering a new era of Destiny content delivery called Seasons. There will now be seasonal activities and stories that take place throughout the duration of the season, giving players something to look forward to every week. Prior to the start of the seasonal model though, the Festival of the Lost is making its return in Destiny 2. Similar to Destiny 1, there are plenty of festival masks, but we now have the Haunted Forest. The only non-cosmetic loot is the Horror Story auto rifle, but there is also a new quest to get the Thunderlord exotic machine gun. Unfortunately, this quest is time-gated, and the community is not too happy about this. Season 5 and the Black Armory are officially here. Focusing around Ada and the mysterious weapons of the Black Armory, this is our first look at the seasonal model of drip feed content. At launch, it's not really being received well by the community. There's a new Forge activity, but unfortunately, nobody can do it because everyone is insanely underleveled. People are understandably annoyed because they've paid for the season, they log in ready to do the content, only to discover that they can't actually do it until they do a ton of leveling first. There are 3 new weapons in the Forge, including the first ever legendary machine gun, so the incentive is definitely there for people to level up and eventually take on this Forge. Each core activity now has a new pinnacle weapon, with Vanguard receiving the Loaded Question, Gambit receiving Breakneck, and Crucible receiving Mountaintop. The few players who have managed to quickly unlock these pinnacle weapons are absolutely blown away by how powerful they are. A few days later on Friday, it's time for the new raid, Scourge of the Past. This is a full raid with a full world's first race, and this time competing teams were able to overlevel quite a bit. On top of this, there's a bug that allows for infinite revives, so people are suspecting that this might not be the most difficult raid ever. However, things are not going smoothly. Tons of the top teams are suffering DDoS attacks and getting hit offline, and then the entirety of Discord went down, forcing everyone to find alternative ways of communicating. The raid includes a Sparrow Maze section, and players are pretty excited about this because it's the first raid with a major focus on sparrows. The final 2 encounters involve tons of tanks and an absolutely massive flying mech, Insurrection Prime. After just about 2 hours, Clan Tier 1 has secured the world's first completion and Anarchy, an extremely powerful exotic grenade launcher. As time goes on and more people get into the raid, the general community is pretty positive. All things considered, this raid is pretty good, although it is relatively easy. Most players have now leveled up to be able to do the forges, and 2 more forges have now been unlocked. Forges are now becoming pretty popular, and they give some pretty good loot, like Tatara Gaze, Blast Furnace, Kindled Orchid, and the aforementioned Hammerhead. People are absolutely loving these weapons, their unique roles, and the overall Black Armory weapon aesthetic. Especially when you equip Obsidian Radiance to add on a special animated effect, these weapons just look amazing. The Dawning is here, and it is way better than last year. We now have Eva Levante's baking oven that we can use to bake treats and then deliver them to NPCs in exchange for gifts in return. It is a bit of a grind to get all the materials and unlock all of the recipes, but it's fun and the gift boxes feel rewarding. There's a new Avalanche machine gun and Glimmer Slay Sparrow that gives you glimmer when you ride it. There's also a new type of emote that involves more than one player simultaneously, and people love these. Hopefully we will get to see more of these in the future. It's January 8th, and Bungie just tweeted the following. Niobe Labs is waiting to be opened with a puzzle that needs solving. Once completed by a fire team, Berguzia, the final forge, will be unlocked for all. Every streamer and theory crafter in the community is headed into this new activity and is clearing out waves of Fallen and trying to decipher this very nebulous puzzle. The puzzle is no joke. From using codes found in other forges to seasonal lore to using rotating ciphers, there's a ton of complicated steps here, and people are going insane with tons of wild theories. A lot of people thought this was going to be just like the raid race and be done in a few hours, but it looks like this one is going to take quite a while longer. 24 hours in, most people have gone to sleep, but the secret puzzle still remains unsolved. At this point, it's becoming clear that even Bungie didn't expect it to take this long, and they've just put out a statement. The unlocking of the final forge will no longer be tied to solving the puzzle. This is an interesting move because on one hand, tons of people are happy to finally enter the forge, but on the other hand, plenty of people are upset that solving the puzzle isn't as relevant now. Regardless, the theory crafting continues. An entire day later, the puzzle is still not solved, and Bungie has just put out a colossal announcement. Bungie is going to be splitting with their publisher, Activision, and will now be self-publishing Destiny 2. There are rumors about Bungie employees cheering and popping champagne, and the community thinks this is great news. Many people in the community blame Activision for the problems that Destiny has had over the years, and it seems that Destiny and Bungie have now been freed from those shackles.
Honestly, guys, this is the best news that we could be hearing as Destiny fans.
People are pretty excited to see what they come up with in the next few years as an independent, self-publishing studio. Unfortunately, this does mean that Bungie will no longer have the help of 2 great studios, Vicarious Visions and High Moon Studios. Only time will tell if this loss will be very impactful, but overall, people are happy to see Bungie become independent. Meanwhile, back in the Niobe labs, players are finally making some progress. A ridiculous 81 hours after beginning the puzzle, it has finally been solved. As frustrating, buggy, and difficult as this puzzle was, players are extremely happy with it overall. Players are continuing to love the forged weapons, but those are far from the only weapons in the Black Armory. The Anarchy from the raid is quickly growing in popularity, but there's also the new Izanagi's Burden that deals massive damage in PvE, and Jotun, which is powerful and yet very annoying in the Crucible. The Black Armory has delivered on its promise of adding epic and unique weaponry, and to that end, the community is really satisfied. It's January 29th, and one of, if not the most iconic weapon in Destiny history is making a triumphant return. Featuring a pretty unique quest called The Draw, the last word is back, and people are happy about it.
Yep, they went and did it. The last word is in the game, and it is phenomenal.
In March, we get Season of the Drifter, and as you might expect, Gambit is a big part of the content entering the game. We now have Gambit Prime, a sweaty version of Gambit that includes just 1 round instead of 3, a moat draining mechanic, and some brand new armor with unique Gambit-focused perks. Each of these glowy armor sets are meant for different roles, such as invading, and provide unique benefits to help you do that role better. Gambit also has some new quality of life features, 2 new maps, private matches, and a new Gambit-related activity called Reckoning. As players cycle between Reckoning and Gambit Prime, they're earning some of the new loot, including an absolutely amazing hand cannon called Spare Rations. This season is also introducing another set of pinnacle weapons, Recluse, Oxygen, and the 21% Delirium. Recluse is far and away the best of these new weapons, and it has become an instant favorite among PvP and PvE players alike. Featuring a perk that gives absurd bonus damage after a final blow with any weapon, it's incredible for going on long sprees and clearing big groups of opponents. The overall community sentiment at this time seems to be that Season of the Drifter is alright. It's pretty great if you're a fan of Gambit, but not amazing otherwise. Gambit was a huge hit at the launch of Forsaken, but since then it has kind of been dropping in popularity. It's now time for the return of another classic and beloved weapon from Destiny 1, the Thorn. Unlike Destiny 1, it's actually balanced this time, and players are pretty happy to have it back even though it isn't an absolute monster. It's still one of the best hand cannons in PvP, and it hits the nostalgia just right with its classic sound and physical Thorn projectiles. It's now April 2019, and it's time for the Revelry event. This brand new event includes an activity called the Verdant Forest, which is basically just a reskin of the Haunted Forest. And in case you forgot, the Haunted Forest is just a reskin of the Infinite Forest, and the community is not exactly impressed. There's also this tonic that basically activates Mayhem and gives you nearly instant recharge of your grenade, melee, or class ability. PvP players are understandably pissed since this makes the mode literally unplayable, and the Crucible has been feeling pretty neglected as of late. And there's also a new exotic linear fusion rifle called the Arbalest. The day is May 7th, 2019, just a regular Tuesday. Players are waking up and starting the week by doing their regular bounties and other weekly activities. However, there's something different about the heroic adventure. A door that is usually closed is now open, and behind it there is a fallen transponder with a ton of mysterious code. The community is able to decrypt this code into a symbol, and that is the symbol of the Farm social space. There, we have found Mithrax, a friendly fallen who is offering us a quest. Players instantly know there is something up. This mission has a 20-minute timer, just like the Whisper mission. Players make their way through the old tower and eventually make it to the outside of the wall and onto an epic parkour section. Next up, there's this absolutely terrifying thing.
Don't turn down this way, please don't turn down this way. Don't turn.
With players dropping down and entering the final room, there's a big captain and a ton of ads. And the reward? Outbreak perfected. This mission, called 0 Hour, is yet another amazing accomplishment in Destiny's history of secret and surprise content. Especially considering the even better heroic version of this mission, the overall community is agreeing that secret missions like the Whisper, Spindle, and now 0 Hour are among some of the coolest things the game has to offer. It's now June, and a new season has just dropped. Season of Opulence. We've just been introduced to Destiny's first ever match-made 6-man seasonal activity called the Menagerie. It's pretty obvious that this activity is a slam dunk. Literally everyone is grinding it right now, and the best part is, the loot table is vast and includes some absolutely awesome weapons. There's stuff like the Austringer hand cannon, the beloved sniper rifle, the Imperial Decree shotgun, and the Arentil fusion rifle that everyone wants to get. There's this chalice that lets you choose exactly what loot you want, and there's also an extremely awesome bug that's allowing players to get the loot several times for just one completion. This activity is insane, and people are hyped. For the first time ever, the raid has also dropped on day 1, the first day of the season. This raid has a new feature called Contest Modifier on day 1 to make an even playing field. Overall, this is pretty well received since it's probably the most fair any raid has ever been in Destiny history. Teams are blasting through the first relatively boring encounter with auto-loading mountaintops, and they're on to the piston jumping puzzle featuring some shielded crystals. The final room is a massive treasure trove with gold everywhere, and the boss, Galrun's Deception. This is actually a relatively difficult encounter for day 1 teams, but eventually they move on to the final boss, Galrun. This is an extremely close race, and 2 teams have ended up finishing just a few minutes apart from each other. However, they both think that they got worlds first because they both got the new exotic, Teraba. Dado's team is crushed, learning that they lost by an unbelievably slim margin. As the Season of Opulence continues, people are still obsessing over the Menagerie. Getting to pick your loot and its masterwork, and then getting multiple drops for just one run of this activity makes it feel incredibly rewarding and satisfying. Add on top of that the fact that Menagerie has random encounters and switches to different bosses over time, and you've got a recipe for a replayable and highly relevant seasonal activity. Continuing the trend of pinnacle weapons arriving every season, Opulence has brought us Revoker for PvP, Wendigo for PvE, and Hush for Gambit. Revoker is probably the most notable out of these 3 because it will completely refund any missed bullets directly back into the magazine, completely breaking the ammo economy for PvP. PvP isn't exactly in the best state right now. Lately, it hasn't gotten any updates at all, and there's no sign that Trials is returning anytime soon. Heavy ammo spawns extremely frequently in 6v6, and especially with the super mods and certain exotics, it's possible to get several supers per game. Getting into an actual primary engagement is becoming really rare, and Mountaintop, Recluse, and Revoker continue to dominate, making PvP somewhat frustrating overall. However, players are currently filled with hope. Bungie has just made a statement about the future of PvP.
One of the things we really want to focus on, especially with Season 8 and the start of Shadowkeep, is a renewed focus on PvP.
There's another exotic hand cannon quest that just came out. This time, it isn't a returning Destiny 1 classic, but instead, a completely new weapon called Lumina. This feels like the first true support weapon in Destiny since it can heal your allies and provide damage boosts. Pretty cool. We've just received an amazing quality of life update. There's a new location called the Tribute Hall where you can set up trophies, damage test on stationary enemies, and have unlimited ammo of every type. There's also another exotic quest being introduced today. Bad Juju is making a return from Destiny 1. You have to purchase tributes in order to unlock it, and players are dumping mass amounts of resources into acquiring it and its catalyst. Overall, players are considering this to be the best season so far. The Menagerie is an absolute gem that players are still grinding, the raid is pretty awesome, and the exotic quests are fun. As the season nears its end, the Solstice of Heroes activity is back again, this time with a brand new activity called the European Aerial Zone. This is probably one of the coolest event-related activities we've seen so far, and the armor sets look absolutely incredible. Overall, a great way to finish off a great year of content following Forsaken. After a short delay, Shadowkeep drops and the community is diving into the story of Eris Morn and the Nightmares on the Moon. The story with the pyramid ship reveal is actually super interesting, but unfortunately it ends very abruptly, leaving players somewhat disappointed. Although this is likely setting up future story content, it still feels kinda bad for a yearly expansion to simply set things up instead of following through by itself. By far, the most significant development that players are hyped about is the completely revamped armor system called Armor 2.0. Armor 2.0 has introduced an unprecedented amount of player agency by adding fully customizable mod sockets where players can build their Guardian in whatever way they want. This is such a massive improvement over the previous system, where armor just came with perks that couldn't be changed and honestly were kind of pointless. Instead of only going to 10, every stat now goes up to 100, and every piece of armor comes with randomly rolled custom stats. Intellect, Discipline, and Strength have also returned, allowing us to properly build into melees, supers, and grenades like Destiny 1. We now have these things called universal ornaments that allow us to change the appearance of any armor piece. In the past, players really had to struggle between the choice of fashion and function, but now we can just have both. There's also this new type of ability to defeat low health combatants called a finisher. These aren't insanely impactful at the moment, but they clearly do elevate the game and provide a foundation for future mods and builds. Alongside Armor 2.0, we also have this new thing called a seasonal artifact. As we level it up with experience, more and more of these mods will become unlocked, further enhancing our build crafting and perfectly fitting in with the new armor system. These mods also seem to be creating interesting season-long metas, especially with the mods that are meant to deal with champions, the new tier of enemy. Perhaps the most important fundamental change that has arrived with Shadowkeep is Destiny's pivot to being a free-to-play game. New players, known as New Lights, are able to play some of the older content and all of the core activities like Strikes and Crucible completely for free. This is amazing news for anyone who wants to get a friend into Destiny, and it's just amazing news for the game overall because there is a massive influx of new players. It's now raid day and the seasonal activity is dropping on the same day. This is actually kind of cool because not everyone wants to rush into the raid on day 1, so the seasonal activity ensures that everyone has something to do. Unfortunately, this Vex offensive seasonal activity is just Menagerie, except worse in basically every possible way. Aside from the loot being way less desirable, the activity itself doesn't come close to being as compelling and unique as Menagerie, but I digress. The Garden of Salvation raid is here, and we're diving into the Black Garden, an epic location that we've always wanted to explore and learn more about. The undergrowth jumping puzzle is really beautiful, and overall, this is one of the prettiest raids we've ever seen. With the final boss involving tethers and moat banking, the mechanics aren't that unique and are basically the same as the rest of the raid. Clan Ascend gets worlds first, and the overall community thinks this is about a mid-tier raid. As time goes on, people are starting to realize some notable problems with Shadowkeep and this season of content. There is no vendor refresh, and there is no world loot, so some of the core playlists are pretty much irrelevant if you already have the loot that has been in the game for the past year. Additionally, PvP still feels really neglected. There's one new map called Fragment and a couple new modes in Crucible Labs. Surely that PvP focus is still coming later, right? The seasonal rank system overall is pretty well received because even on the free-to-play track, you can still earn almost all of the same things if you play enough. However, since both the artifact and the seasonal pass rank up based on your experience, they have kind of highlighted some issues with the experience system. It seems like the most effective way to level up is by spamming absurd amounts of bounties, which are mostly pretty easy and not very interesting to do. On the other hand, endgame activities reward little to no experience, which doesn't really make sense to me. Season 9, aka Season of the Dawn, is now upon us. It features the Sundial, another activity that is yet to live up to the Menagerie, but overall it does have rotating bosses and is a very solid activity. The story focusing around Saint 14 is great, and he is a pretty popular character among the community. This season has brought us Obelisks, a new type of seasonal item where we can unlock new perks and do bounties for seasonal loot. This is the first time we've seen anything like this, and it feels a bit overcomplicated. Once you understand them though, the Obelisks are pretty cool and they have some pretty decent loot. At this point, Bungie's split from Activision is starting to become noticeable in-game. Since we lost the two other studios that were helping Bungie develop the game, it feels like Bungie is no longer able to pump out sufficient content to satisfy the player base. Although this is a pretty decent season, it has effectively brought us zero endgame content whatsoever. No dungeon, no raid, and nothing of interest for the core playlists either. PvP feels neglected yet again, with the only update being a reprised Rusted Lands map. Maybe next season the PvP focus will finally arrive. People are also kind of frustrated because the new flashy Season of Dawn mods can only be slotted into Season of Dawn armor, effectively making all previous armor obsolete if you want to use the new mods. People want to make some Charged with Light builds and use the sweet new stuff like Powerful Friends, but unfortunately they just can't do that unless they want to equip new armor and destroy their stat builds. Destiny has won Best Community Support at the Game Awards. Very well deserved. As much as the community likes to meme about Bungie listening, most of us can recognize that the team does a fantastic job of addressing community concerns, relaying reports to other teams at Bungie, and ensuring that the Destiny community continues to thrive. The Dawning has returned, this year bringing basically exactly the same things it did last year. We now have an SMG called Cold Front, but other than that, there isn't anything that's new. It's now January, and there's a new community puzzle for us to decipher. This involves a massive maze in the corridors of time. Everyone is jumping in and trying to brute force their way through, but this is proving to be completely ineffective. Other people are building a maze and plotting a path through the corridors, and finally, after several days, we have found a correct path through. This has unlocked a new exotic quest for Bastion, a very unique fusion rifle. Unfortunately, this quest is rather boring, which has kind of made the end of the puzzle feel anticlimactic. We're about to enter the next season, but first there is a brand new community event called the Empyrean Foundation. By donating the primary Season of Dawn currency called Fractaline, we can get progress on our weapon bounties to farm for amazing rolls, and some players even suspect that completing this event will bring back the fan-favorite D1 Crucible mode, Trials of Osiris. The Fractaline system basically works in a way that the more you invest in the obelisks, the more you will get for free in future weeks, and thus the community has created a lot of memes about investing and the Fractaline stock market going up. With the Season of the Worthy arriving in Destiny 2, it turns out we were right.
Welcome to the Trials of Saint 14. Ha! A joke. Here we go!
The PvP community is excited. This is the first notable update the Crucible has gotten in like a year. As we eagerly wait for the weekend and trials to arrive, we are exploring the seasonal content, which includes a public event? Seriously? As far as public events go, this is pretty good, but man, players do not enjoy endlessly farming these monotonous public events over and over. Regardless, hype reaches a high point as the weekend rolls around and Trials of Osiris launches. Millions of players are assembling their fire teams and jumping into Destiny's most iconic PvP mode of all time, with hopes of going flawless. But immediately, players are noticing there is a big problem. From the moment Trials launched, cheaters have been absolutely dominating the game mode. There are thousands of cheaters just running around with infinite heavy, infinite lives, infinite RPM weapons, and aimbot. Even on console, there are plenty of cheaters, but they are a lot more subtle and beatable. The crazy thing is, even if the cheaters do get banned, they'll now just be able to make a new free-to-play account and they'll be back in Trials 5 minutes later. It feels a little bit hopeless. There isn't even adept loot for going flawless, and every single piece of new Trials loot is actually a reskin. Trials has arrived half-baked, unfortunately. Just like last season, there is literally no endgame in Season of the Worthy. Many players are just deciding to take a break. This season clearly lacks replay value for most of us. It feels like we're entering another dark era of Destiny, and most players are just quietly waiting and hoping for a great expansion in the fall. Players are at least a little excited for the Lie quest, which promises to bring back the Fellwinter's Lie, an iconic shotgun from Destiny 1. But in order to get it, we have to complete 9 million public events? At this point, the community is unbelievably frustrated, and most people are simply refusing to even do the public events. A couple days later, Bungie has now reduced the amounts of events required due to the outcry from the player base, and it's time to move on with the quest for the Fellwinter's Lie. But the quest is bugged and doesn't allow us to progress it at all. Disappointing would be an understatement. As the season draws to a close, there's something exciting going on, Destiny's first ever live event. As tons of Guardians cram themselves into the tower, we're all witnessing the almighty fall from the sky off in the distance. Even though this isn't a super engaging live event, it is really cool and hopefully sets the stage for more live events in the future. Season of Arrivals is here, and so are the Pyramid ships. We're finally picking up the story from Shadowkeep, and players are very curious to see where it leads. As we venture into the depths of Io to find Eris Morn, who has gone missing, we're led to this mysterious tree as we collaborate with the Drifter to stop the darkness from encroaching on Io. As Zavala tells us, we are the only thing stopping a second collapse from happening. This is easily the most compelling seasonal story we've seen so far, and players are glad to finally have something interesting after the void that was Season of the Worthy. There's a new public event on Io called Contact, and while it's not amazing, it's a whole lot better than the event from last season that we were supposed to play 9 million times. There's a brand new dungeon called the Prophecy, and this is an instant success. Players are venturing off into the realm of the Nine, learning that up is down, and exploring beautiful new landscapes. There's a new armor set, the returning Trials of the Nine armor, and some additional returning weapons, so there's a pretty decent loot incentive here too. The Drifter is hosting a new loot system revolving around umbral engrams. After players figure out the somewhat confusing process of focusing and decoding them, we are pretty excited. We are getting tons of these umbrals, like an insane amount, and we can focus them into a loot pool that we actually want. Fantastic. The weapons here are ridiculously good too. The Falling Guillotine in particular is insane and does massive damage with its epic spinning attack. The seasonal exotic Witherhoard has also become a staple in a lot of player loadouts, and people are happy to finally have some new interesting things to use. It's now July, and the Moments of Triumph system is making a return. This is highlighting all of the best parts of the game, allowing for unlimited farming of raids and rewarding players with new cosmetics. Although it isn't quite as glorious as Age of Triumph from the end of Destiny 1, it is definitely breathing some new life into the game's fundamental content and celebrating its success. As time goes on, the Umbral Engram system is carrying the replay value for this season. There's just so much desirable loot to chase from the Umbrals, especially with the Gnawing Hunger becoming an absolute beast in the Crucible. There are new quests for the Ruinous Effigy and the Traveler's Chosen, and overall these are being pretty well received. Neither of them are particularly attractive weapons in the current sandbox, but people are happy to have some new missions and content to play through as the season drags on. The next major expansion, Beyond Light, has been delayed due to a certain IRL health issue, so this season is going to be a long one. The state of Crucible and Trials is alright. Don't get me wrong, cheaters are still absolutely ruining the experience on PC, and auto rifles like Gnawing Hunger feel a bit too strong, but all things considered, this is a decent time to be a PvP player.
Hello again.
The Festival of the Lost returns again, and it's basically the exact same as last year. Players were hoping for something to keep us interested as we wait for the next expansion, but unfortunately there isn't much here. Beyond Light comes out tomorrow, and today there is another live event. We've entered a special section of the Last City, and we're watching the Traveler slowly start to glow and emit energy. As the Destiny servers go down for the final time before Beyond Light, we get a cinematic of the darkness encroaching and consuming a few planets, and the Traveler healing itself. At long last, Beyond Light is here, and with it, an epic quest to the icy depths of Europa. Europa truly feels like a next-gen destination with dynamic weather systems and violent blizzards that frequent the patrol area. The Stranger is finally making a return after leaving us in Destiny 1, and this time she definitely has enough time to explain what is going on. People are hyped to dive into the new story and determine what is going on with the darkness. Aramis and her lieutenants have gotten their hands on Stasis and the darkness, and they're embracing it and learning to wield its incredible power. and players are excited to do the same. Stasis is the first ever new element added to the Destiny franchise, and from the new subclasses to the new weapon damage type, players are extremely curious to find out what a new element will do for the game. As players get their hands on Stasis for the very first time in the story, it's incredible. After years and years of playing the same 3 elements, it's so exciting to finally try out a new element and a completely new power fantasy. Stasis is changing the way we approach combat in every part of the game. There's a very grindy, long quest chain to fully unlock Stasis, and while the story itself is decent, the insane amount of tedious quest steps is souring it for players. Especially considering that the fast travel locations are very limited on Europa, players are spending ages driving around on their Sparrows just to arrive at the location of the quests. Exploring Europa is really fun at first, but when you're driving past the same icy rock for the 30th time in a single day, it gets pretty old. As players are getting their hands on Stasis for the first time, they're exploring a brand new subclass layout system. Instead of having the rigid subclass trees, we now have a much more customizable interface with fragments and aspects. Ever since Destiny 1, players have been begging for more subclass customization, so people are very happy to see this new development. Stasis is overpowered, to put it lightly. Every single player in every single game is using Stasis. If you play just one game of PvP, it will become immediately obvious that Stasis is the most overpowered thing to ever exist in the history of the Destiny franchise. But at least at first, since everyone is using it anyway, it's fun to have something new and exciting to shake up the Crucible. There are ice crystals everywhere, people are getting frozen left and right, and everyone's experimenting with new builds and abilities. Unfortunately, Stasis has basically made it so that gunplay does not exist anymore. After all, why would you use your weapon when you could just throw an auto-tracking grenade that locks onto targets and freezes everyone in a 6-mile radius? Bungie has realized their error, and they've deployed a patch nerfing Stasis just a few days after the release of Beyond Light. However, this patch is doing absolutely nothing, because Stasis is just so hilariously overtuned in so many ways that it's going to need a full rework in order to bring it back in line. Meanwhile, back on Europa, players are overall very satisfied with the destination. Varix has returned, and he's bringing new bounties and quests called Empire Hunts, which reward some fairly unique loot. Exploring beneath the surface and finding all of the experimental laboratories on Europa is really awesome. But amidst all of this new excitement and discovery, Beyond Light has brought a monumental change to the Destiny universe that every single player is talking about, and it's called the Destiny Content Vault. The Destiny Content Vault, or the DCV for short, is a new program where old content gets removed from the game periodically. Bungie has basically just informed us that the game's file size is too large, and having such a large game makes it difficult to update it, so this will make things more manageable on their end. Players understand this, but man, it's extremely unfortunate to lose such massive parts of the game. Mars, Io, Titan, 7 strikes, 11 PvP maps, and 5 raids are just all gone. Destiny 2 felt like a pretty large game last season, but now with so much of it being stripped away, Beyond Light is kind of starting to feel like it has downgraded the game in a number of ways. If Beyond Light delivered like a massive amount of new items, it might have distracted us from all that we lost, but since it hasn't done this, players are left feeling kind of empty. Alongside the Content Vault, there is also weapon and armor retirement, aka sunsetting. Anything from before Season 9 is now obsolete, rendering hundreds of beloved and meta-defining weapons completely useless. In the case of obviously overpowered weapons like Mountaintop, this is kind of a good thing. But in the case of more balanced weapons, players feel robbed. One particularly annoying example is that the campaign reward is the Long Shadow Sniper Rifle, which is a weapon that we've had for years. So basically, Bungie took away all of our weapons, and then immediately the next day, they're selling those same exact weapons back to players through the expansion. Although weapon sunsetting is a highly debated topic in the community, the overall consensus seems to be that it's disliked overall. Trials arrives, and oh boy, the Stasis meta is in full force. There's now adept loot and adept mods to make Flawless actually kind of meaningful, so this is good news. But overall, the state of Trials is still very poor. The most common causes of losing in the mode are broken Stasis abilities, lag, and cheaters. Bungie has implemented an SMS verification to supposedly make it more difficult for cheaters, but this doesn't seem to have a noticeable impact. It's 11 days after the release of Beyond Light, and it's time for the new raid, the Deepstone Crypt. The hype around this raid is extremely high because we've been waiting for over a year for a new raid, the longest wait in Destiny history. The location is also the origin of all Exos, and since it has been talked about in the lore for years, we're excited to finally get to explore it. As the race for World's First begins, teams are speeding their way through the initial Sparrow encounter in about 10 minutes, and then they head into the crypt. The crypt security is pretty unremarkable, but requires solid communication, so after people get organized, it's on to the first boss, Atrax 1. In a completely unexpected turn of events, players are blasting themselves into outer space in this encounter, and everyone is freaking out.
I'm going to space! I'm in space!
What? In space?
I'm in space!
Players split up into teams, with some scanning and telling everyone else where to go, and some managing the operator buff. This is an absolutely epic fight, and getting launched into space is one of the coolest raid experiences to date. Next up, there's a new area that is truly special. The next encounter involves a ton of buff mechanics and ad clear as the ship crashes down onto Europa. With yet another version of Taniks being the final boss, the raid comes to a conclusion with some unique mechanics and a pretty satisfying victory for Luminous, the world's first team. Overall, people are extremely happy with this raid, and many consider it to be one of the best we've seen so far. As we get deeper into the season, people are starting to become a little more analytical about Beyond Light. There is some notable long-term damage that this expansion has actually done to the game. The Beyond Light version of the game is built on a new engine with new lighting and stuff, and unfortunately this is absolutely tanking the game's performance on PC. Bungie can't seem to fix the issue, and it seems like it might be quite some time before we start getting decent FPS. Additionally, the lighting on PvP maps is now blinding, making it literally impossible to see enemies who are right in front of you. After losing 11 maps this expansion and getting no new ones, PvP players are extremely frustrated with the outcome of Beyond Light, and rightfully so. Stasis, cheaters, and third-person peeking are making the Crucible literally unplayable, there are no new maps or modes, and it's becoming clear that the promised renewed focus on PvP is never going to happen. On the bright side, Beyond Light has brought us a good amount of highly relevant new exotics. The Cloudstrike Sniper is great for big collaterals in PvP. Salvation's Grip is a cool stasis grenade launcher for the campaign, but unfortunately, it's completely useless after that. The Lament Chainsaw exotic sword is terrifying and amazing at the same time. Spider is also offering a new exotic quest for the Hawkmoon, one of the most famous Destiny 1 hand cannons. As players hunt down like 1 billion golden feathers around the world and complete a mission, they're awarded with a shiny new Hawkmoon that is completely different from its Destiny 1 version. It's now a randomly rolled exotic, the first ever in the Destiny franchise. Since you can replay the Harbinger mission to get additional random roll Hawkmoons, this adds a ton of value to the mission, and it's a really good mission overall too. There are a handful of new exotic armors that can be acquired by running very difficult versions of Lost Sectors, and this is pretty cool considering that Lost Sectors haven't really had a clear purpose since the very beginning of the game. With Necrotic Grip, Mask of Bakris, and Athrus's Embrace being some of the most notable exotics, these Lost Sectors feel rewarding, even though the RNG to get a good drop can be brutal. Beyond Light has brought with it a full New Light experience and a brand new character called Shah Han. Shah Han's entire purpose is to guide brand new players through the now expanded Cosmodrome on a series of missions introducing them to the game. Unfortunately, this still hasn't really fixed the issue of the New Light experience. Players just do a couple of extremely boring quests for Shah Han before they're thrust into the entire Destiny universe and get overwhelmed by like 50 quests. As it stands, most players are just getting extremely confused and they don't really know what to do unless they have a friend or YouTube videos to guide them. The season that came with Beyond Light, Season of the Hunt, is pretty mediocre if you look at it in isolation. It revolves around the Wrathborn Hunts activity and the core playlists of the game, which is pretty unfortunate considering that Beyond Light has just downgraded every core playlist by removing content. The Dawning event seems like it fits in a little more this year now that we have so much ice and snow on Europa, but overall it isn't much different from previous years. There's a cool trailer featuring some stasis and some sweet Sparrow moves, and there's a new fusion rifle called Glacioclasm, but that's about it. After so many years of the same thing, some people are starting to get real tired of baking cookies in that ridiculous oven. It's now February and it's time for Season of the Chosen. This time, centered around the Cabal, we're embarking on a new story where Empress Keitel proposes an alliance between the Cabal and the Vanguard, but since she wants to lead said alliance, we now have to engage her Cabal in ritualistic combat. We have a new location called the Helm where we figure out our battle plans and then go engage in the seasonal battleground activities. As is becoming the tradition, there are 3 new exotic armor pieces, one for each class. The Omnioculus for Hunters, the Cuirass of the Falling Star for Titans, and the Mantle of Battle Harmony for Warlocks. These are all pretty decent exotics, with the Omnioculus being a standout option for both PvP and PvE. There's also 3 new strikes, 1 new and 2 returning from Destiny 1. Strikes weren't the only core activity to see some new things though. Trials has a brand new armor set and some amazing new weapons, including Messenger and Igneous Hammer, and Iron Banner also has a returning set of armor along with some returning weapons. The Trials loot is really relevant for PvP players, and it's finally giving us something to chase after months of having mediocre loot. There's a new quest called Presage on the Tangled Shore, and as players complete it, they're receiving the Dead Man's Tail, a new exotic scout rifle with random rolls. This mission is similar to the Hawkmoon quest and arguably a bit cooler, but the addition of another random roll exotic makes Hawkmoon feel a little bit less special. The Dead Man's Tail is incredibly strong in PvP with a fast fire rate and the ability to sometimes 2-tap people at nearly infinite range. Overall, the community is pretty happy. Having more exotic missions like this is cool, and the Dead Man's Tail itself is incredibly unique. February 25th, 2021. Today is a special day. Bungie has just unveiled a new article called The Road to the Witch Queen, and in it, they have confirmed that weapon and armor sunsetting is being removed. As of today, any weapon that can be infused to the maximum power will be able to do so forever. The community is extremely happy about this update.
Fellas, did you hear it? Sunsetting just got sunset. This right here tells me that Bungie is listening to their player base. And secondly, thank God they did not continue down this rabbit hole.
The Bungie article also says that going forward, each season will only have an increase of maximum power by 10 instead of the usual 50 that we've been getting every season. Players are also pretty happy about this change because doing the massive 50 power level grind every 3 months was getting pretty tedious. This article also made some very promising updates about the future of the game, and overall, we're very satisfied with the contents of this article. This is the best Destiny news that we've gotten in months, and at this point, it seems like the future is bright for Destiny players. Guardian Games is making a return for its second year, this time featuring the catalyst for the heir apparent that was available in the first year. There are some quality of life updates to make it a bit more enjoyable, like a celebration at the end, but overall it is about the same as last year. Season of the Splicer begins, and it's off to a rocky start. If you have too many people on your friends list, you literally can't do anything within the game. As people finally do get into the game, they discover that for the first time in history, the sun did not rise because of a Vex simulation that is threatening the last city. In a surprising turn of events, we're forming an alliance with Mithrax to save the city. This time around, the seasonal mode is a match-made 6-player activity where we splice an entrance to the Vex network. The inside of the Vex network looks amazing, and players are hoping that we might see a PvP map here one day. This season is also introducing a feature that every Destiny player has wanted since 2014, a full transmog system. Although there is currently a lot of drama about the transmog system being too complicated or too focused on Eververse, it feels amazing to finally have your appearance be fully independent from what you have equipped. This season is definitely seeing a rise in Guardian fashion, and having the coolest looking transmog setup is really becoming an important part of the game for a lot of players. Stasis is still extremely overpowered for the Crucible, even though it has received a ton of nerfs over the past few months. Shadow Dive in particular continues to plague PvP. Vault of Glass has returned to Destiny, and it's just as epic as veteran players remember it. Featuring a world's first race and a new challenge mode to make things interesting and change up the mechanics, people are pretty happy to see VoG return. The loot is also amazing, featuring classics like the Fatebringer and the Vex Mythoclast, which are both extremely powerful in PvP. It's now August, and it's time for Season of the Lost, which will be the longest season in Destiny history at 6 months long. However, we do know that there will be a special event happening in December, so we aren't too concerned. The seasonal story involves rescuing lost Techeuns while Marasov is trying to exorcise Savathun of her worm, presumably setting up the future story for the Witch Queen expansion. The recent reveal of Witch Queen has also helped to build a lot of hype for the current season, and it has brought a lot of people back to Destiny. By far the most notable game-wide update this season is crossplay. We can finally play with people on different platforms, making the whole Destiny community feel a lot more connected. This is a feature we've literally wanted since before Destiny 1 came out, and it's great that it's finally here. September rolls around and it's time to try out the newly revamped Trials of Osiris. And this isn't just a small revamp, Trials is getting a complete makeover. Third-person peeking has been removed, and this is instantly making Trials more enjoyable. Up until now, the optimal Trials strategy was to emote or pull out a sword, and then just sit there doing literally nothing until the end of the round, making the mode painfully slow. Now, people are actually engaging and peeking like normal, which is unbelievably refreshing. Next, the entire Trials loot system has been completely redone, making Trials rewarding even if you don't go flawless. Last but not least, Bungie is finally launching an improved anti-cheat, as they tweet out a massive Eye of Sauron gif alongside the announcement of their partnership with BattlEye. Every single person who has ever played PvP is rejoicing. This is huge. The seasonal activity is Astral Alignment, and it includes matchmaking for up to 6 players. It's alright. It probably would be more popular if the loot was more enticing, but as of now, most people just aren't super interested in the items. There's also the weekly story drops in the Shadowed Realm. Again, people think this activity is alright, but it isn't anything too special. Unfortunately, Lorentz Driver is something special. This new seasonal exotic gives literal wall hacks, has almost no flinch, ridiculous aim assist, and can body shot opponents in PvP if you're on a streak. Bungie has confirmed that they will be removing the wall hack soon, but still, this weapon is beyond insane for PvP. Festival of the Lost is around, and this time there's actually something new and interesting. Instead of the traditional haunted forest, we now have haunted lost sectors with zones and plenty of cosmetic loot. There's also the Jurassic Green Pulse Rifle. Fast forward to December, and Bungie's 30th anniversary event is here, and it's taking everyone by surprise because the new content is so impressive. Dares of Eternity, a new 6-player activity, is one of the coolest and yet bizarre activities we have ever seen. It's basically a game show featuring Zur and a mysterious cosmic horse, and they have some very interesting dialogue throughout the activity.
The proto-galactic horse wishes to see you traverse our wacky obstacle course.
The loot here is pretty sweet, and includes references to Bungie's past games like Halo. Whether you're after the BXR-55 Battler, one of the swords with the new Eager Edge perk, or the Wastelander M5, the Dares of Eternity has loot that is interesting to everyone. The 30th anniversary is also bringing us a new dungeon, Grasp of Avarice. This is of course a reference to the original loot cave way back in 2014. This is an epic dungeon featuring a massive amount of hidden traps and some really cool encounters like a sparrow race. Ice Luna and Thousand Yard Stare are making a return, which is exciting for PvP players, and yes, the iconic Galahorn is also back, and oh my, is it powerful. After experiencing this dungeon, players are feeling pretty optimistic about the future. Bungie has promised that there will either be a new dungeon or a new raid every 3 months from now on. If they're able to keep the encounters and loot as interesting as the Grasp of Avarice, we're going to be in good shape going forward. It seems like we're finally past the days where seasons would deliver literally no endgame content, and that is a relief. Overall, the 30th anniversary content just feels awesome. Whether you're hanging out in Zur's treasure hoard, grinding Dares of Eternity for that super rare purple sword, or working through the Forerunner quest, the anniversary event is enjoyable and players love it. This is also an amazing time to be a PvP player. Bungie has just introduced variable ability cooldowns, meaning that every ability now has a unique cooldown, and this has been a huge help for making the Crucible more balanced. Now that every single ability and super has been individually tuned, abilities as a whole feel like they aren't overpowered. At long last, stasis is no longer broken. Genuine gunplay and duels have now become the primary way of engaging with your opponents. The anti-cheat is still working great, the sandbox feels good, and people are having fun. Breaking news, Bungie has just been acquired by Sony. This is a big deal, $3.6 billion big. And much to our relief, Bungie is promising to remain in full control of Destiny and not have any PlayStation exclusive content going forward. As we enter 2022, everyone's attention is turning to Witch Queen, Destiny's much anticipated February expansion. People could not be more excited. Bungie is running ads everywhere on YouTube, and the expansion has surpassed 1 million pre-orders, putting it on track to be the most pre-ordered expansion in Destiny 2 history. February 22nd, 2022 has finally arrived. The Witch Queen launches and features 2 difficulty options, with the legendary difficulty being both harder and more rewarding. Even on the first few missions, we are already impressed by this campaign. With interesting things like getting launched out of a cannon to facing off against Lightbearer Hive for the first time, it's becoming clear that the Witch Queen campaign is going to be something unique. We've come a long way from 2014, when every single mission involved defending your ghost while he unlocks a door. The legendary campaign is difficult, unlike so much of the previous story and content in the game. Veteran players are actually being challenged, which feels amazing. There's so many interesting and unique mechanics in these missions, and as we explore the Throne World and learn about its secrets, the campaign just gets better and better. There's also no pointless missions. For the past few years, we've had far too many quests that simply involve going to a lost sector for some side quest, and it feels largely irrelevant. The combat in the campaign is amazing. Fighting against Lightbearers is just so different that it's really mixing things up and forcing us to play in new ways. Especially with their extremely powerful supers, they feel like a genuine threat, and they could wipe us out at any moment with a Blade Barrage or a Shield Throw Ricochet. The story is genuinely compelling with narrative twists and turns, and it really feels like you're getting to know the Witch Queen as you progress through the missions. Culminating in a final epic battle against Savathûn, this feels like perhaps the best campaign we have ever seen. As we're introduced into a new location called the Enclave, we learn about the new weapon crafting system that has come along with the expansion. After acquiring a certain number of red border drops, we can now craft that weapon, and after leveling it up, choose exactly what perks we want. Although the crafting system and its materials are really confusing to everyone at first, people are really starting to like it once they get the hang of it. Being able to avoid random rolls and pick your ideal perks on a weapon feels like a dream. Glaives are the new type of weapon here, and although they're definitely fun to use, the general community consensus seems to be that they aren't too powerful. The block is pretty good, but the hit registration is pretty bad, especially in PvP. The Throne World destination is one of the better locations we've gotten recently, and it feels like there's always more to uncover. Whether it's the deep sight system revealing hidden platforms, a moth cruising around on a boat, or some slime that you can walk around in to write messages, it feels like the Throne World has a lot of secrets lurking within. Players are having a great time exploring this location and its unique public events, quests, and puzzles. Witch Queen has brought a full overhaul to every Void subclass in the game. We're finally breaking away from that limiting 3-tree system, and all Void subclasses are now fully customizable with the Aspects and Fragment system. Although this transition has effectively nerfed some of the previous Void abilities, it's definitely a net positive, and players are happy to have more ways to express themselves through their subclass builds. A few days after Witch Queen launch, everything still feels great. The campaign is a polished masterpiece, and whether you're completing it on Legendary or regular difficulty, it's an amazing experience. Although the campaign is a definite success, it's clear that the Witch Queen hasn't delivered in a few essential ways compared to other Destiny releases. The Witch Queen has brought 2 new strikes, but aside from that, the core playlist did not receive any notable changes. The only updates to Crucible are a new loading screen and 2 Destiny 2 maps, and Gambit is just as neglected as ever. In fact, Witch Queen has actually made Gambit even worse than before because there's a new bug that lets Ariana's Vow one-shot everyone to the body. This lack of attention to the core playlist is definitely a disappointment for veteran players of the franchise because we know that once the new content inevitably fades, the core activities become the meat and potatoes of everyone's Destiny gameplay. Without innovation and updates to those core systems, the gameplay can get stale really quick. One area where the Witch Queen did a pretty good job is with new exotics. With the Osteostriga being an immediate highlight here, there's just a collection of some really unique and decently strong weapons and armor. The Laurely Splendor, Blight Ranger, and Renewal Grasps are some of the most interesting new exotic armor pieces. March 5th is Raid Day, and Vow of the Disciple has arrived. Unfortunately, error codes are absolutely destroying the Day 1 raiding experience, and everyone is constantly getting kicked back to orbit while trying to ride this little barge thing. With the next encounter featuring totems and a ton of symbols with strange names, the raid has started in earnest. The jumping puzzle looks awesome and actually has a puzzle in it this time. The final boss, Rolk, is quite the encounter, and it's one of the most unique and best encounters in Destiny history. He has a charge attack, shoots out fire beams in all directions, and he even kicks you if you make the mistake of getting too close. All around, this feels more like an MMO boss than anything we've seen before, and players are loving the experience of fighting him. Elysium wins World's First after 7 hours and takes home their second raid belts. The loot isn't that strong overall, but the aesthetic is extremely awesome and unique. Guardian Games is making a return, and it's the biggest it has ever been. There are now specific Guardian Games playlists, with strike scoring finally making a return from Destiny 1. Season of the Haunting brings the return of Callus and his derelict Leviathan orbiting the moon. We dealt with our nightmares a while ago, so this story focuses on helping Crow, Zavala, and Keitel confront theirs. This is pretty cool because we're getting to learn about each character and their backstories, and the kinds of things that they think about. Overall, the story continues the trend of being extremely strong and interesting each week. The Derelict Leviathan is a new patrol space, and even though it's just a reskin, this is pretty cool because most seasons do not come with a destination. This new Leviathan comes with the Nightmare Containment, the new public event activity. The Leviathan has brought some new weapons, and man, this is a long and tedious grind. The beloved Austringer, Drang, and Mini-Tool are returning fan-favorite weapons, and they're all random drops from the chests on the Derelict Leviathan. Getting just one to drop is easy, but if you want to get 5 red borders to craft any of these weapons, you're going to be spending an extremely long time farming these chests, the public event, and powerful enemies that spawn in the patrol area. Solar 3.0 is here, and while it feels just a tad underwhelming compared to Void 3.0, it's still accomplishing the core goal of these revamps, which is to switch over to the new subclass system. As people learn to craft more powerful solar builds though, a trend is starting to emerge. With all of the insane combos that you can make with these 3.0 setups, Guardians are just becoming more powerful overall. This is fine when you're just running around having fun and making things go boom, but it also trivializes a lot of content that is supposed to be challenging. Especially with max resilience now providing an absolutely massive 40% damage reduction, it's easy to just feel immortal in PvE. This is especially obvious for Titans, who can just sit in a sunspot with some minimal build crafting, and they can just live forever. This season is introducing a new system called Airborne Effectiveness. Basically, if your airborne effectiveness stat is low and you jump, you will miss. The only way to actually hit your shots in the air is to increase your airborne stat, but unfortunately this is difficult and nearly impossible to do. The best part is, this stat isn't even viewable in the game until next season. The pace of PvP has slowed to a crawl as nobody is jumping, and now everyone has just resorted to camping and staying grounded at all times. Topics like this are usually very controversial, but this time the community's feedback is clear. We do not like the new airborne effectiveness system, at least not in its current state. As promised, there's a new dungeon this season, and the duality launches to an overall positive reception from the community. Going back and forth between the new realms is an interesting mechanic that we haven't really seen before, and overall it's a pretty unique experience. Unfortunately, the dungeon is suffering from an annoying bug where ringing the bell has unintended consequences. Based on what we know, it seems like it may be some time before this bug is addressed. For the first time in what feels like forever, there's a new mode in the Crucible. The Iron Banner is receiving a major rework similar to Trials of Osiris, except not quite as extensive. Rift is returning from Destiny 1 and is featured in the Iron Banner, although it has been significantly reworked and now includes rounds rather than just one continuous game. Rift is alright, but it's also extremely buggy right now. The spark sometimes just disappears and breaks the game, the loading screens between rounds are annoyingly long, and sometimes the transmat effect just fires over and over non-stop forever. Considering that this is the first notable PvP update in ages, PvP players are really disappointed that it's so buggy, and they're even more disappointed with the new map, Disjunction. After literally 1,000 days of waiting for a new map, we have received what is quite possibly the most disliked map in the history of Destiny. Overall, people are viewing this as a pretty unfortunate outcome for the much anticipated Iron Banner update. Solstice of Heroes is around, and this time it's a bit different. We have an event card, and the overall activity still presents a good opportunity to get some high stat armor in the categories you choose. We also have Bonfire Bash this year instead of the typical European aerial zone, making things more interesting. August rolls around, and we're getting a new season and a massive reveal stream for Destiny's next expansion, Lightfall. This stream includes Season of the Plunder, along with some super surprising collaborations. Destiny is collaborating with Fortnite and Fall Guys. We're going to be receiving some awesome looking Fortnite armor sets, and Fortnite is going to be receiving a playable version of one of Destiny's best PvP maps, Javelin 4. There's also some familiar looking character skins being added to both Fortnite and Fall Guys. As a part of this collaboration, Destiny is now also available on the Epic Games Store, helping the game reach an even wider audience. This is great. Season of the Plunder launches to a lukewarm reception. The hype is still really high from the big reveal stream, which spoke very favorably of the season, but now that we're getting our hands on it and the hype is wearing off, it isn't anything too special. The two main seasonal activities, Catch Crash and Expedition, are pretty good, but it's clear that the community is getting really tired of the formulaic seasonal model at this point. Grinding artifact mods, leveling up the pass, progressing some upgrade table thing, and replaying the seasonal activity 89 times in order to progress the story is getting old. It's not that the content itself is any worse, but players are just longing for novelty and exploration of systems instead of the same formula over and over. Despite all of this, players are still really excited for the next returning raid. King's Fall is making a return to Destiny, now with a challenge mode just like Vault of Glass. The raid is just as epic as we remember it, and veteran players are really happy to be reliving some of the best experiences from the good old days. There are some different mechanics in Destiny 2, but overall the raid plays fairly similar to how it originally did. A lot of World's First racing teams are really close as they move through the normal and challenge modes, but at the end, one team pulls ahead. Clan Elysium secures their third consecutive World's First win, making them the only team to ever do this. The raid is a total success, and as more of the community continue to complete it and chase that coveted Touch of Malice drop, everyone is loving it. Arc 3.0 has been introduced, finally finishing the update process of the light subclasses. It has generally continued the trend of power creeping and becoming more and more powerful. Especially in PvP, the 3.0 class updates have made abilities now extremely dominant again in the sandbox, basically undoing the great situation that we were in 1 year ago during the 30th anniversary. Crucible is now overrun with tracking storm grenades that last forever, melees that teleport lunge halfway across the map, and invisible hunters are everywhere. Being permanently grounded due to the airborne effectiveness system also continues to make the gameplay feel slow, boring, and uneventful. We did get a returning Destiny 1 map this season, Cathedral of Dusk, but overall PvP is in a pretty rough place, and everyone is looking forward to the much-rumored competitive rework next season. Despite the popularity of King's Fall, it's clear that the community is becoming burnt out on Destiny as the season goes on. Player numbers are dropping off pretty fast, and with the seasonal story not being too interesting and the Festival of the Lost being relatively unremarkable, there isn't really anything to do right now. As we enter November, the player population dips to the lowest numbers ever recorded on Steam. Content creators are struggling as viewership has also massively declined, but everyone is remaining hopeful for the next season and eventually Lightfall. There's a new Telesto bug in Destiny 2. Not surprising, right? But this time the bug is behaving so strangely that the community is just baffled. Since it looks like this is actually an intentional bug, could this be a secret puzzle? Some people are coming up with crazy conspiracy theories, blasting Telesto into the sky and searching for patterns and constellations. Their suspicions are confirmed as Bungie is now putting Telesto memes all over the game and all over social media. A couple days later though, Bungie has now revealed that it was just a fun little event with no real purpose. With the player base already kind of being frustrated with the state of the game and the lack of secret missions, a lot of people are saying that this was just a poor time to drop this little event. It has been years since we got a real secret mission and we desperately want to see more, so we're a little disappointed to learn that this is actually not anything significant at all. With the season coming to an end, there is a community event where we need to donate Captain's Coins and other materials to help rebuild the Elixni Quarter. In typical Destiny community fashion, we found a bug and already finished the entire event in one day, completely transforming the Elixni Quarter from a rundown looking area into a cornfield? Suffice it to say, we were hoping for much more drastic changes to the area, but it looks like our $400 million basically just amounted to some pretty subtle changes like a cornfield and some wooden benches being added. Of course, the community is quick to make a ton of memes about the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of additions to this space, but overall, the event just represents a pretty rough end to a pretty rough season. Season of the Seraph has now arrived, and it's bringing some long-awaited features that Destiny players are excited about. The story consists of Osiris, Anna Bray, and Clovis Bray working together to rebuild Rasputin. The heist battleground activity is new this season, and the new mechanic here is the towers that lock onto you and you need to break line of sight to avoid getting deleted. Perhaps the hottest topic in the community right now is the competitive PvP rework. The Crucible Director has been completely redesigned, consolidating a lot of playlists, and now features a ranked competitive division Crucible. Yes, ranked Crucible with an actual ladder. This is something we've wanted for years, but it's not really going that well, at least so far. The meta is kind of absurd, and especially in the higher ranks, most games involve camping behind infinite barricades that you can shoot through and your opponents cannot. There is literally zero loot, including zero cosmetics in the competitive division, so there isn't any incentive at all to climb through the ranks. The core issue here is that Destiny is a looter shooter at heart, and people want to chase loot. Activities without much loot generally do not see as much playtime, and this is a prime example. Bungie has promised that there will be cosmetics eventually, and while that is reassuring, for many players this is too little, too late. The new dungeon has just launched, Spire of the Watcher. Initial reactions are positive, although some people are annoyed that one of the bosses is exactly the same as the one from Garden. The final boss is another story altogether though, and it's a really hectic and awesome fight. The loot includes a hilarious cowboy hat and a legendary version of Dead Man's Tale. Overall, everyone likes different dungeons for different reasons, but it seems that people are generally pretty happy with this one. As time goes on, all focus is shifting to Lightfall. Everyone is hoping that Lightfall delivers an amazing experience, and based on what we know so far, people are getting hyped for the new features. Destiny is finally getting an in-game LFG. We know that this game is best played with others, so having a fully integrated system to link up and meet new people is going to be amazing. The new player experience is finally getting something to guide new players and introduce them to the game and its systems. There's going to be a loadout screen and mod manager where you can build your Guardian and save loadouts for instant swaps. Strand, the completely new Darkness subclass, is on the horizon. And as we inch closer to Lightfall, we inch closer to the beginning of the end. With this chapter of the Destiny story coming to a close, we've been through a lot together, and we still have many more adventures ahead of us. Through all the twists and the turns, the ups and the downs, I'm certain about one thing. The memories that we've made here will last a lifetime. Thank you for watching. This video took hundreds of hours to make over the span of several months, and I'm not going to ask for you to like or subscribe, but I do have a request. Next time one of my videos pops up in your recommended, click on it. I spend over a month on every single video I upload to this channel, so I think you'll enjoy my other videos too. Here's one of my recent favorites. I got 11 of my subscribers to compete in a bunch of Destiny challenges, and the winner got $1,000. I'll see you over there in that video, and once again, thank you so much for watching.